Hi, Beth. You're muted, Beth. Yeah. So,
Hi,
so
good
Beth,
afternoon.
I'm going to try to get myself out of this and just put you in as the speaker, okay? And I'm going to put it in a place where people can see it. And so now that's going to be the next interesting challenge. We could, well, you know what? If we all move to
move it here, we orient this way.
Okay, here we go. And then we'll just ask people to circle around that way. How does that sound? So we'll put that like this. And
So can you see us okay?
I can see you guys, yeah.
honey, I think you must still be
She's
muted. You must be still muted.
You can't hear me?
Can't hear you.
Okay, hold on.
I don't think that's my machine because it works pretty well. But it's gender and I know how to fix it.
Well. We're seeing ourselves. Is this on Zoom? Is it Zoom?
It's on Zoom.
So let's put it on. Okay.
So
Oh,
it looks like we're looking at ourselves.
yeah, we are.
Yeah, and
So now what do we do?
just looking at the
Wait till
view,
we come back.
gallery view, so we
There
can
she is.
see what she's seeing.
All right, how about now?
Still can't
We
hear
still
you.
can't hear you. There's something, okay.
How about now?
I
No,
didn't-
How about now?
I didn't hear from anybody.
can't hear you.
Oops.
How about now?
No,
No,
I can hear myself. Okay.
you can.
Do you want to check Diane's volume?
I can't. Oh, wait, that may be it.
No.
No?
No.
No, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, okay, it was my machine.
It was-
I received a phone call from somebody I'm tutoring in the middle of a lecture to which I was listening, and I put it on mute. So this was my fault, and
No problem.
now you,
Could easily be mine.
no, it was entirely mine. Okay, fantastic. You look healthy.
Well, I just had a week away.
I know.
You did too.
Yeah, well, I had
Yeah.
gorgeous days.
Oh, good.
First of the season.
Yeah, yeah. Where were you?
We were on the Cape with my cousin.
Yeah.
And it was a
Nice.
beautiful
Hi.
home. Hi,
Good to
Melissa.
see you.
We have a beautiful home. And you know Carrie Rankin? Mrs.
Oh,
Sophia?
nice to meet you.
Congratulations on your new school committee.
Oh, thanks.
And my husband is on it. I know, my husband 100 years ago was on it. God.
God bless them.
Yes.
My wife Loretta was chair.
They were on together, that's right, that's how, when I
Wow.
first met you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Oh,
mean,
that's fantastic.
Yeah, when they were meeting until like 4 in the morning.
Oh, my
Stop.
gosh.
Oh, when I was observing it for the league 100 years ago, we would just meet on individual. And I was busy taking, my computer was running out of power.
I don't know whether you recall how Loretta ended up in the school committee. But we were fairly new to town and she had done a search because we were living in North Framingham and Sarah, our oldest, was about to start school. She didn't want to put them in the Framingham schools. So she narrowed down to 6 school districts and she decided the Alcott School District in Concord is where we wanted to live. And she's a California girl, so she wanted a California contemporary with a swimming pool. And we were laughed out of the district's office.
Right.
We gave it was a year. And I goes, I only need one. So in the middle of the winter, we get this phone call in the middle of a snowstorm saying there's some students who've been renting a California contemporary on Park Lane that's in the Alcott School District. They've burned the garage down. And I called the owner and explained it to her. She says, just sell it. She goes, you're not going to get anything for it. And with all this stuff, just breed in the front yard in the middle of a snowstorm. Just, well, what would somebody pay it? She said, I know one couple paid $300,000 for it. That's all we could afford. And so
That's actually a lot for what you're getting. Is that-
it was a great deal.
Sorry,
We're on Park Lane with a
Yeah.
California contemporary swimming pool. But Sarah goes there to Alcott for 1 year. And at that point, the school committee decides to have to redistrict.
Oh.
And our kids now cross Route 2 to Willard.
Yeah.
And Loretta stands up at the meeting going, I did all this work. You know,
I find California contemporary. I find it so cool.
So the next time the school committee was looking for people, say, to Loretta, they said, why don't you join the school committee? So as as fate would have it, she had the next time we redistricted.
Marlene is still willing.
Yeah, you guys are so willing.
Yeah.
But it turned out Willard was better for my kids.
Yeah,
Because-
they're all great. Willard is great.
Because of Canantum, there's so many more math and science people in Canantum. Because when that was built out,
Absolutely, right,
that the
because it
Willits program that teach, the parents are teaching their kids more about math and science than they are at the Alcott School.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
That's interesting, just
Yeah.
as a.
Well, but you think
demographic.
of Canantum, who settled Canantum?
Oh,
It was
no,
in
I
that
know,
time.
right,
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
I
not
like
a
to think the Alcott
surprise,
district,
but
which was where my kids are from, were the literary.
Right, they were.
There you go.
The apple did not drop anywhere near my kids.
But you said you take notes, right?
No, I didn't say that.
You didn't say you would take
No,
notes?
I never
Who
said
said they would take notes?
The lovely lady.
Who works for the.
No, but Donna,
town
remember she
manager?
said she couldn't be there?
Oh,
No,
for this
I
one.
didn't say it. I honestly, I can't. I'm going to Italy shortly and,
Well, that's too bad.
I just had a meeting, I have to have a chat with you. We had a meeting last night, historical commission.
Yeah,
I have to talk to you about the meeting here.
okay, I would love to.
Another meeting.
That sounds grand.
But-
Meanwhile.
Oh, no,
I quite enjoyed
yeah,
that.
well, gosh, there's just so much more to understand about that.
Right.
This was,
Do you want me to take notes?
I'm sorry, I just, because I'm gone again.
Okay, no, that's right.
But the whole Squassachum
Yes,
name thing,
Jim gave me a little.
and then so after this morning, I wrote to Marcia Rasmussen and said, again, how hard is it to change a name? Well, it's very hard.
On the street.
A street name.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
On the street. So I still feel like one of the things that we could do as a historical commission or part of the town is a proper plaque. Because the whole story of the
There you go.
Squassachum is so
That is
wrong.
on
And
screen.
I know
Point it out,
that.
yeah.
Hello.
How are you?
And it's about, one of the things, I think the themes, I hope themes for this new, the 2250th is the history of Concord, the true history of Concord. or
The true history, right.
yeah,
At least
of
it's
all of it.
between now and.
As
then.
we now
I-
Yeah.
nice to
Your
meet you.
fans.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry.
It's good. So maybe we can leave the street name the same, but then put the plaque underneath it.
There, and I want to take the Jethro's Tree plaque down.
Right, or if we can't take it down, let's put something around it. So-
Well, yeah, I mean, I just, there's so much, thank you. And Ryan is going to try and get a hold of Lisa Brooks. Ryan is a professor at
I
Lisa.
would love to talk to Lisa Brooks at some point.
So anyway, I'm sorry.
No, this is great. And we don't have Jen Shinneman here yet, or Stuart Akita. And they didn't say they weren't coming, so I hope
No,
they.
she said she's leaving for Paris or France. Monday.
Monday.
This is a very well.
Yes, I was just gonna say.
I would like to go on all
If
that.
anybody needs your luggage carried, I'm really happy.
For life, 30 minutes. I'm very thankful.
Well, it's good to know in case we need to send a message to.
Hi,
Jen.
How are you? Is no one sitting here?
Welcome. Yes,
For
of
you.
course.
You, how you doing? I'm good, how are you? Good.
Willard and I decided to gather.
Beck
friends
is on
from different states
Zooming
and
in.
like to go back to,
Okay.
so we do a
Can
friends
I-
tour.
She'll be able to
Zoom her a little.
We can picture her so she can
We
see
can
us.
move her.
Well, Beth, we're putting you at the head of the table.
Oh, goody. Hi, Jen.
Hi.
Oh,
Okay,
I see,
yeah,
sorry.
Okay, terrific. Well, very graciously, Melissa, Carrie walks right in and says, well, I'll take
I'm
notes.
sorry, thank you, Carrie.
I didn't remember. I thought I asked last time and I asked if somebody would. I thought somebody volunteered on this for you all. So that's just fine. So first we have to welcome. And then secondly, we need to approve the minutes.
Yeah.
So were there any corrections or emendations to the minutes that people felt?
They were great minutes.
I was impressed.
I thought you did a great job,
Yeah,
didn't you?
yeah, I
Yes.
was impressed.
Wow, not only that, she did a calendar. I didn't see her doing that.
No, I did this.
Oh.
Yeah.
Julie,
And
no.
not only that. I brought that because although Beth can't be with us, because Beth can't be with us, there was much discussion about having a whiteboard or something else, and I thought, no, we're gonna have to just
Yeah.
use the monastic system,
Yeah.
pen and pencil. And everybody has the same calendars
Sure,
in front of them.
right.
That will give us, and as I was putting this out, I realized, now this is going to sound, I realized how very much we have more time than I sensed by doing this.
Yeah, there's.
When you
And
look
I
at-
know we're
Yeah,
under-
no,
I
we
know
don't.
we're under. I know, I was waiting for the realist to step in find them.
Those
I was
were so
printing them.
fast.
I know, because I was.
There are
printing
several
these things out.
pages.
Sorry. And you're off to Paris, right?
Bordeaux.
Bordeaux.
Oh,
Excuse me.
oh, oh.
Not for this long, though.
Yes. How much wine did you bring back?
All of it. Gonna need all of it.
Maybe we could go to her.
There you go. Next meeting in Bordeaux.
Oh.
Come on down.
I'll put that in the list.
Hey, listen, the French were very involved in our success, the
Right,
Revolutionary
the
War.
Lafayette.
It's just good due diligence.
I don't know, this sounds like something they'd say at the Lexington town. committee.
So, apropos of your suggestion, I move that we accept the minutes on the 18th.
Yes.
Seconded.
Second, third, yes.
Fifth.
Good thing somebody's moving us along sensibly. My very sophisticated calendar, how I keep my life organized.
Oh, wow.
Right, like
There you
anybody,
go, Diane.
yeah, it's really stupid.
So the one officially
Okay,
seconded.
so we all vote aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Minutes accepted
Jen?
with,
You
Yes.
seconded, okay, sorry.
Yeah, sure. Seconds all mine.
with approbation for her very fun. So.
And I might motion that we might even note how great the minutes were.
Yes,
and
yeah,
the
yeah.
moderation.
I second that.
And facilitate and our great leadership. in our-
I told people that this committee, I have never had more people talk so much. I have been on, I'm sure we've all been in a lot of committees. Has anybody talked more than this group?
No, but this is
And
it's
had more
wonderful.
fun.
And also knows a lot. I mean, it's not just idle chatter.
Oh, good.
It's a great.
Yeah.
Isn't it a great group? I'm so happy. Okay,
I'm
now,
abstaining from voting on these.
okay, oh yeah.
Oh, but you were on that.
Right, I'm not shy.
I think you all should see this. I received this from Henry.
Okay.
He
Celebrate.
gave it to me.
Uh-huh.
He gave it to me at the last executive committee meeting. And I was going to say, is this our formal logo? You know, what do
Right.
we know? Blah,
Right.
blah, blah. So I want you all to see it. I'm sure we get copies for everybody.
Sorry, who did you get this from?
Henry Dean.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Well-
so now my question, I don't think that we are, that the first on our agenda is to try to either accept or not accept this as a logo. But it's one of the things in terms of branding
Yes.
that our committee needs to specifically think about, because once we're branded with a logo and a tagline, and I love your tagline, and I've also suggested it, and it's in the minutes. And
Still heard around the world.
Still heard around the world.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Don't you love it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's in the minutes, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
And it's a repartee to Lexington's tagline. Where it began.
Where, yeah.
Where it began. Yeah. Stored around the world. Boom.
Gotcha. Oh, wait.
So do we have money for like a professional designer, or maybe you'll have connections to people who are designers?
Designers, do we have?
That's, I think, part of the question too about, is there a budget for this?
Yeah, this
work?
is, yeah,
Now
'cause I
that-
think you told me I'm digital, I don't even know how, sorry, this is my first meeting.
Yeah.
Like what everyone's roles and
Role and
responsibilities.
responsibilities are. What, that's partly what we're gonna figure out today.
Okay,
So you
okay.
can just keep flowing. You'll be fine.
Also, I don't think.
Oh, Jen, oh, I'm sorry.
I'm Jen.
Jen.
Carrie.
Carrie
Rankin.
Carrie
Hi, nice to
Rankin.
meet you.
Jen, editor, designer, imaginator of Discover.
Yeah.
Discover.
Oh,
That
wonderful.
fabulous
Okay, great.
magazine.
Beautiful.
Okay, so, what I was gonna say is that's something we need to be thinking about. And I don't know whether the executive committee feels that that's their purview, is to decide that under an events committee or something, but I will bring it up on Thursday evening and ask.
The budget.
The budget.
Oh, no, the budget,
Oh, who's in charge of brand identity?
Branding.
brand
Oh,
identity,
yeah.
right,
Yeah.
and
Well, it
incidentally,
encompasses the name, the formal name, the logo, the look, the feel,
The
the
like-
color
yeah,
palette,
the
the, all that
taglines.
I
stuff.
mean, all that stuff.
And Diane,
Yes,
you
Beth,
can, so Stuart and I, when we talked to the web designer that does the Visit Concord site, he can take that on. He did all of the initial branding for Visit Concord. So the answer to whoever asked if we have designers, we do, that are under contract with me. And Jennifer has tons of them at her disposal as well. So we have no shortage of creative talent that we can tap into. When we approached him for the website pages, he asked specifically if we wanted him to do the logo and the branding. So that's certainly within his scope of capabilities. It all comes down to budget.
And he must have a name, yes.
What? Oh, Mike Sperling. It's Sperling Interactive.
Berlin?
Sperling, like the
Your materials that you sent, and I was gonna share those.
yeah.
Stuart and I met, she says, with our web designers, but it says Sperling Interactive, so I didn't know that was his name, Mike Sperling.
Mike Sperling. Yeah.
And it was deemed that the best way for us to develop a website is to attach ourselves to visitconcord.org
Right.
as a subtitle.
Right.
And I was gonna copy this for everybody, but I didn't do that, and I will send it around, Beth, which is your statement, and it's very helpful, but I wanted your permission to do that first.
Of course.
Okay, all right, so I will scoot that around to everybody, all right? Scoot around.
Scoot around.
Yeah, I know, that has to be interesting. All right, so,
The one thing that I'll note is that I think that even with the process, it would be nice if there was something that was collaborative about how we create at least
The logo.
logo and
Yeah.
what this represents as well. Right?
it would have to be.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just no
There's
question.
so
I mean,
many-
that's the reason I'm gonna bring it up at the executive committee, good point, Toby,
Yeah.
because you're not doing that is a travesty.
I mean,
Can
at
you
a,
collaborate with the town or with the committee, like all
With the
committees
people.
I
looking-
think with whoever we think needs to be. a part
Whoever's
of it.
editorial, yeah.
Okay.
You
It's gotta be
know,
a reflection of
it-
what the concept
it would
is.
be pretty easy, and I already have a subscription to like Survey Monkey or Survey Hero.
Uh-huh.
We could even just do a very basic 5-question survey and let anyone who wants to give an input on what does the 250th anniversary mean to you? Do you have a thought for what it should be called? What do you see for Concord moving forward, et cetera? We could,
Mhm.
and at least by opening that up, it could be something the town could put out through their news
To their
flash.
newsflash.
And in very early on, give everyone a voice.
I thought they did this, one of the things.
Well, that's what I've got some dates for us. on
Yeah, that public
Okay.
meeting,
But they
right.
engaged the public very early
Right.
to help like shape the identity.
The
of each
identity.
People involved.
But that's a really good idea, Jen. I mean,
Yeah.
that might be a way to reach more people than might come to a meeting, and it would be
Yeah.
limited the number of people.
Well, and at the end of the survey, you could say there will be a meeting on XY date.
Yeah.
If you would like to be more active in shaping, we invite you to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Well, you should know that I changed the press release through Erin Stevens. I sent
Were
it
you
to
able
her.
to see my edits on that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you
completely,
were, okay,
Totally
okay,
absorbed.
okay. Oh,
I mean,
good.
completely absorbed, everything
Oh.
fixed. And Erin edited even further. She said all of this
Mhm.
is about open meeting law and it doesn't belong there. So
Mm-hmm.
she just took that whole paragraph out. I thought it probably did because I think people will ask questions, but I guess we're just gonna have to respond to the questions individually. So that paragraph was eviscerated. Gone. So we had that
I
she.
guess in theory, every committee has to comply with open meeting law, so.
To some degree, but we're in a slightly different situation. If you remember that paragraph, it indicated that more than people could serve on more than one committee in
Oh,
town.
uh-huh.
You know, somebody who's not, Stuart's not here, somebody who's not living in Concord could participate in the variety of commentaries, but she felt that was not, as somebody who works with the press, she felt that was not appropriate. So
Or
she-
news
Yeah, I
release.
would agree. And the other thing on the press release, I guess one of my questions as I was reading it, and I wasn't part of the discussion admittedly, but is it reads more of like something we're submitting to be printed versus, which obviously is how we all operate under the Concord Journal, but versus something that we're looking for reporters to like pick up on their own or other people to pick up. Was that intentional or was that?
It was intentional.
Okay, because it reads more like an opinion
A
piece,
statement.
or yeah, than
Slightly.
yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Because this isn't actually gonna be sent out to media. It's just posted somewhere.
Oh, it's
right?
gonna be sent to media. It's gonna be sent to the
Yeah.
Concord Journal with pictures and everything.
But outside of.
But outside
of that.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Erin was not specific. I was on the Cape and I don't know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but we will find
So
out.
are
So
we,
understood.
one of us, or I don't know, who's Aaron?
Oh, I'm sorry. Erin Stevens is the town's outward-looking public relations.
Information officer.
Okay, so
Information.
she's the one who sends out notices and reaches out to the press. Because no one here is doing that, right? That would be her role.
That's part of what we're gonna talk about on our chart today. I mean, that's part of what we're gonna work on today. So I know we've got so many questions. And they're really good questions, and one person will figure them out.
Can I just express an opinion about that?
Yes,
I think
please.
it's a very lovely 1975
Oh, God, yeah.
logo.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it
Yeah.
would be
Yeah.
very useful to have somebody looking at
I
21st
mean,
century style.
Yeah.
inclusive, I mean, this whole thing,
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more.
Right, it's not a
Yeah.
reflection of what we're talking about.
It does resemble the New London style
you
pizza.
said
And
that.
I don't know, we want to wade into that conflict between Sorrento.
So
Right.
Sponsored by.
Right.
New London Pizza.
The London style is there.
Oops.
Oh, man, okay.
Yeah.
Let me get 2 dates on your calendar. On October 16th, the executive committee is meeting with all people, or is gonna be invited. Is inviting all people who are on town committees.
Sorry, say that date again?
October 16th,
Sunday.
Sunday,
What time?
on town committee, didn't have a time on the thing that they sent me, so I don't
Okay.
know. But I will let you know the minute I know.
And did that change from, because I think I read in your message, it was November?
Yes, and that was about what I was about to tell you, that on November 3rd,
Mhm.
there's going to be a public hearing. And so I changed the press release
Mhm.
and put in that bottom sentence. Please join us
Mhm.
at this event. And I said, watch for the town
Why
calendar
are
for
they-
details, because there weren't details available.
Why are they doing that on Sunday?
That one is on a Thursday.
No, the October 16th is a Sunday.
I have no idea.
And
Maybe
is
that's
that-
when the
that's-
Concord Museum was available.
And, but that's, the 16th is for whom?
Is for all people who are on town committees.
Town
And
committees
we are
regarding,
also on a town committee, so I mean, it means everybody who's part of this effort, all meeting together.
so like, not just people who are on Celebrate Concord 2025.
It's
or
just
whatever.
any town committee.
So
Any
like
town
school
committee.
committee.
I think it's gonna be everybody.
So all.
And
That
I
was
get
my
to
understanding.
discuss this.
Now, I missed that meeting, because that was the
Mhm.
only meeting I missed, but I did miss it. And John Arena's minutes don't get to me for some reason. He takes superb minutes, but
If you
There's
don't know what
some email
time this is
thingy.
happening. Yeah,
clueless.
Yeah.
I might not be
Okay.
able to be there. I have out of town guests that day.
Oh, man. Well, I'm
Okay.
sorry they didn't give me a
Yeah.
time. They just said that's when it was going to be.
Okay.
So
Mhm.
there you go. I will know more
Okay.
next Thursday when the 250 reg meets, and I
Okay.
can be a little more vague.
And we don't know, do we know the objective? for
Yeah, the
that?
purpose of
No, it is to do something like, I believe, is to do something like we might do on November 3rd, which is to open up the whole group for discussion, for
Right.
input, for perspectives, for thoughts.
And it's gonna be the Concord Museum.
Concord Museum.
Okay.
both meetings?
Both, I know, the other one's gonna be here in the library. And it's gonna be limited to 140 people. And so it's gonna be first come, first served,
The public meeting.
public meeting.
Okay.
And I hope they also have it on Zoom so that other
Right.
people can participate, but that's again something I'm gonna have to try to figure out by talking with
Mhm.
the folks planning this.
The Goodman celebration earlier this
I
week
know, I once said
was a
that.
wonderful use of that
It
road.
was,
Yeah.
it
Worked
was
so well.
Oh, I
fantastic.
missed it.
That was 85 people though. So-
No, it was
Oh,
145.
was it 140?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to be here so much.
It was so good.
Yeah.
But I kept thinking, come on the Cape thing, just.
She's such a treasure.
Right.
Yeah, isn't she
I
amazing?
guess we saw her last night.
We
Yeah.
did.
You did.
Yes, we had drinks with her.
Oy.
Nosh.
What?
What used to be
Nosh.
Trails End,
Ah, yes.
now called Nosh.
Oh, and you had drinks with her because?
She was there.
Because she's lovely.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
she-
because she
she
was
was
there. Oh,
there.
yeah, yeah,
Her-
yeah.
her
No,
son was there.
I'm friends with
Yeah.
Dennis too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, she's a hot ticket, isn't she?
She is.
Yeah. She's writing a very interesting book right now. That's really not what we're supposed to be discussing. So, then I also wanted to tell you, I had a terrific conversation with Mike Lawson. Because I'm trying to figure out what the state is doing, much less what the
Yeah.
United States is doing. Trying to figure out what's going on there is extremely difficult. There doesn't seem to be an active website. And when Mike said what you have to do is you have to go to the Mass Historical Society website, because they're the one.
Mass Historical Society. or
Massachusetts Historical Society, Rev 250, he thinks it's called, website. They started everything or initiated everything, and he thinks that's where we can figure out to some degree what the state is doing. He and Mike Barrett got
Is
together.
is the Historical Society a
No, Mike
government
Loss is-
organization?
No,
Mike
I can
Loss-
answer that.
Oh,
go.
It's the website for the state is revolution250.org. And the oversight organization is Mass Historical Society. So that is what Town of Concord is a member of.
Right.
So that is the state website, and there is an event portal. It is not easy to use. Stuart and I spent some time with Jonathan Lane as the administrator for the site for Mass Historical. And frankly, it leaves a lot to be desired. The website. There's just not a lot on there right now, but that is the site that in theory should link to each of the community's sites for specific events. So I heard back from the person that's organizing the state events, and she is supposed to be setting up a meeting with me, and I was going to ask her to come and speak to this committee as well, with what the state is doing for events. I just don't have that date yet, but that is the website that the state has given us, so to speak.
Well, Mike Lawson and Mike Barrett met yesterday and talked together because they're very concerned. First of all, there hasn't been a lot of initiative. The state effort has not really been going in full tilt, an understatement. And on top of that, and probably shouldn't do that.
And we love the state.
But
or we
they-
could just rephrase it. They were intrigued to understand more details around the impending plan, which we are certain will be unveiled shortly there too.
This is,
Quite robust.
this falls in the category of creative nonfiction.
Yes.
I have to tell you guys one other thing. I spoke to the director of Massachusetts Office of Travel and Tourism. I spoke to her by email and I saw her this morning. They also don't have any plans for right now working on Rev 250. So
What?
I wish I had better news. I really do. I was very impressed.
Of American history.
Yeah. She said, let's talk.
I think that's a good idea.
I mean, it might be useful for them, for a town to start getting ahead on this.
Well, so I think if we come to her, like we could work with her. Like I love her. She's fantastic. Her name is Keiko Oral, and she's been the director of Mott for 3 years now. And
You give this the name of that person again? From
Keiko, so she's Keiko,
Keiko.
Oral, Orall. So she's executive director of Mass Office of Travel and Tourism.
Known as
Fantastic.
Mott, like the.
Mott, correct.
Okay.
So, Interesting and also not positive news. So
Are we gonna transition in the new administration next year? Are we kind of?
Does
are we
they
gonna
report to the
fly-
governor? Right.
yes, they report to the governor and they're funded by the state. And then they in turn fund the Convention and Visitor Bureau.
Yeah.
So we might not see a lot of movement
Yeah.
Yeah. Until.
until next.
Fair enough.
Okay. All right, now just keep going on this conversation. Mike Barrett, Mike Barrett is you all know, as our Senate, one of our state senators. And so Mike says that, and Mike Lawson, that what there isn't in the subcommittees that are presently being planned by the Mass Rev 250 is any communication with communities. That there isn't a subcommittee designed to try to do outreach, to draw in ideas, to create, even just a portal for people to be able to report initiatives that they're undertaking. So I posed the following question to Mike, and I said, so Mike, let's say that we have a really good piece on the early participant in the revolution, early participants in the revolution in Concord. And we wanted to see it go to the Boston Globe. I said, do we have to, or the Herald, and the Herald, and the Herald. And do we have to go through the state committee to do that? But we asked this question last time, remember, who has
Let's not
authority,
invite that.
but, and, but I wanted to make sure that there wasn't an established protocol, Jen, that
Yeah.
they had, locked in something that
That we
if we
didn't know
took that initiative, they
Right.
might be
I
cross as an understatement. Mike said, ignore them.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
do what you want to do, plow straight
Yeah.
ahead. Now, he's our official rep there.
Right,
So I think we can do this now with absolute confidence that if anybody screams at us, we can say, well, we were just simply
We don't
told.
hear them.
Right, all right.
We're Concord.
We're Concord. Oh, yes, I forgot.
We can speak with authority as to Concord subcommittee.
Absolutely. But I just wanted you all to know that
Yeah.
we did ask some
Okay.
questions
Okay.
last time about the state and what was the state gonna do and what were they
I
not
think
gonna
we
do.
wanna be out there very early, because we wanna establish our little chain, with our
Absolutely.
contacts to different people in the media. We have some in our town, I mean, it was interesting to see the list, but there are a lot more who actually live in Concord.
Mhm.
I think we do our own thing,
Okay, well, I
because
absolutely.
it's about our town.
It's about, well, I understand.
Because
but-
Lexington
but-
doesn't exist.
Well, to that point, though, we should also probably
Well, we-
invite some kind of communication between the families.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's something that actually Henry has started.
right.
well,
You
Mike
know.
has too.
And Mike has, well, Mike absolutely has.
Well, and Beth has a fantastic relationship with the Lexington Visitor Center,
Yeah,
right? I mean, you've done a lot of legwork, Beth, over the last couple of years to,
Oh, yeah. And we have a great convention and visitor bureau that we're part of the Greater Merrimack Valley. We're members of the Boston. So yeah, we have connections wide.
We're connected, right?
So Diane, in that spirit, is the concern that, so if there's a state website, how do we make sure our things get on the
Get on it.
website? Is there some
well, at-
vetting of
At the
that?
present moment, there is no way to do that.
Okay.
There is. There's an event portal. He sent me the link,
Okay, well.
but it's like an electronic, it's like a form on a website that says enter your event info and hit submit. But
Right.
I don't know what happens to it because there's no calendar built on their page yet.
Oh,
But there's no formal calendar that allows us
Correct.
to see things. So I mean, I'm
Right.
sure that's what
Okay.
Mike is working on
Okay.
with Mike.
Got
Girl. So that's on their list, okay?
wait,
And
to
it's
work on a
only
calendar?
channeled.
What?
What is on
The-
there?
The state is trying to look at an overall state calendar
I
as to
see.
where events
Oh,
are
okay.
popping up and what's
I mean,
happening and everything else.
It feels like it's your platforms that the town has created, the magazine that is going to give us far more visibility than anything.
Oh,
we're
yeah,
doing now.
100%
I
more visibility.
I think, right, Beth, the idea is to take the content that we're generating through our regular kind of course of business, which centers on our town history, and to find ways to push it out and link to these other sites, but
Right,
we're not gonna wait for them.
exactly.
No,
We'll,
No, I think we are far more nimble and
Yeah.
we have the contacts that we need already with the Globe. I know every press person, at the Globe and the state level. And if Mass 250 comes up with some great programs, then that's great too. The woman that I talked to is the president of Mass Historical, and she said the only thing they're currently doing is planning to get an actual independent nonprofit organization, which I'm not sure how important that is. And they're planning to mount a 250th exhibition that is worthy of national attention. I just forward Diane the message.
Historical within, in their own their building, they're gonna put up an exhibit.
say would make sense.
Yeah, but then it should travel. It should be a traveling exhibit that each of the communities can have and add their own to, or I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Beth has done a phenomenal job of creating a very well-connected infrastructure. She's invited collaboration from the beginning. With the magazine, there's a great partnership of sharing content. And
Right.
I think we just add whatever resources pop up as another place to push out the content that's not just generated here, but vetted by our local historian experts and
Right.
is authoritative.
Right.
as you
Right.
said.
Right.
So can I go back to, Are we talking about a time frame, a year?
That's what we're about to do. Okay, you've been every time just right on target. Okay, but a couple things, just background. Mark Hawley has written. He's the head of the Minuteman Media Network. I invited him to this meeting. I didn't get a response, but I heard at 10:59 last night from Terry Ackerman that he has all sorts of ideas and wants to be involved in what we're doing. He wants to film it, he wants to record it, he wants to save it, archive it, and he has ideas about how to do that. So he'll be at our next meeting, I presume.
Great.
Since he didn't
Pauley
walk
or
in.
Pauley?
Pauley,
Pauley.
Pauley, like Mark Pauley.
Oh, Paul.
Pauley. And he's a great guy to work with. And
Yeah.
I've done, lots of things with him, and he's terrific. So he may actually join this committee. I'm not sure kind of what relationship he wants to have, but I will make that overture, once he and I have a chance to talk, okay? Just so you all know
That's great.
that we have an anchor and a foothold in that area. Now, if we take this chart, if we look at our minutes and we take this chart, one of the things besides branding that I want to take to the executive committee and collaboration, which we emphasized last time about knowing what everybody else is doing, so that we're not blindsided by anything. One of the things I hope we can do is to look at this chart and just do this to it, just expand it, and then begin to figure out who wants to take responsibility for which area. Now, Jim, I've already put you under the Concord Bridge. Because I know you're willing to write for that and you're willing to support that, and that's fantastic.
I'm now thinking that we ought to be doing profiles of individual people of 1775, like that, and go beyond, include the men and the militiamen, but the women, the blacks, the indigenous.
That's
everybody was
fantastic.
here.
So actually, we had an editorial meeting after this last one, and it's precisely, well, I'll wait until Diane gives me the cue, but I'd like to walk you through our thoughts of how we'll lead up to.
Do it right now.
Is that okay?
Yeah,
All
we'll
right.
just put that right on.
All right.
And I've got one
I
copy.
have 3 copies. so
I
we
ran
can
out
share.
of colored ink, so I better
Can
go
we
back and get some more to
share?
share.
All right, so Beth, I'm sorry, I didn't know you were coming virtually. I'll send this to you afterwards.
Thanks.
Sorry
It
about
sounds
that.
like you might actually have had the same conversation on your end that Stuart and I had on ours. So that's awesome.
Probably.
You know why Stuart's not here, Beth? I know you're not his keeper, but.
I don't. I expected him to be there because I told him I was going to have to join remote. So I don't.
Make sure I haven't made him.
I'll try texting him.
Are you texting him now?
Yeah, I'll do it right now.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so I actually brought a show and tell piece. So this is back from 2020. This ironically, this issue went to press the day before we shut down for COVID. So there was no thought of COVID in this issue. So it's a nice one to just show an example. We started thinking about, we only have 2 Patriots Days to practice before 2025.
Interesting.
Terrifying.
So forget that
If we look at the
Yeah.
calendar.
So the idea came out of our group meeting last time is that this is a,
Do you want to say who R is, just so we don't have the vague pronoun hanging out there?
well, I mean, this.
Oh,
this
committee,
group,
this
this
group,
subcommittee.
Okay.
Yeah, so we talked about, don't jump ahead. You don't know what I'm talking about. Well, you can't jump ahead and remain wondering what that is. So the idea is that we already have a vehicle that is not an academic journal, but it's serious content. And if every issue of Discover Concord focuses on our revolutionary history, our transcendentalist history, our beauty, nature, parks, which is kind of tied to the transcendentalists as well. And then current day, kind of high profile movers and shakers like Doris Kearns Goodwin, and then family friendly things to see and do around town. And there's an underpinning of always trying to support the businesses wherever we can. So the idea here is to take this platform that's already well suited to what we're doing, and over a period of 48 months, not quite. No, 24 months. 2 years. Gradually transition those pillars of content so that the portion that is dedicated to the revolutionary history and tied together with whatever we come up with the telling of our stories moving forward slowly becomes the dominant content with building up to a crescendo. So this is where you see this Rev 250 share of voice to increase over time. So we did an analysis. So for example, in 2022, this year, we had 2 pages of dedicated editorial that just talked about the revolution per se. There was also things to see and do and maps of where to go and this and that. So in 2023, meaning this coming spring, this will jump up to a section of 6 dedicated pages in addition to what we would normally do. By 2024, it becomes 8 dedicated pages. And then 2025, the entire issue is focused on Rev 250. I'm just calling it that for now. We make, yes.
Again, you do this, how many issues a year do you do?
We do 6. There's 1 for each season. And then we have the Guide to the Great Outdoors, which focuses entirely on highlighting all the outdoor spaces that Concord enjoys. We provide trail maps and all of that. And then we have the Holiday Guide, which is a support for local businesses. So 4 core issues. So over time, the amount of content of those pillars shifts so that by 2025, it is essentially a dedicated issue, only looking at that.
And I'm gonna interrupt for you for just a minute, because not everybody knows that she's gonna be able to print this in such a way that she'll be able to pull them out and make a booklet. out of
Oh,
it.
yeah, I was gonna.
You're gonna get there.
I was gonna get there.
Yeah.
So one thing I didn't put anywhere in any of my sort of thoughts initially, because it's a side project, is by the time we get to 2025, we will have newly produced between now and then about 110 pages of dedicated content. In between though, I think it's really important that we solicit the stories and the voices of the towns around us, from Acton all the way to Arlington, et cetera, even in Boston. And the idea is, so of course the 2025 edition will be a keepsake, but that gives us 80% of a book that we could then reformat. And then I had my crazy harebrained idea, which is Rev 250. I did a quick search. There are just under 25,000 middle and high schools in America. So just under 25,000. So I would love to see this book placed in the library of all 25,000 middle and high schools in America as part of this effort. And that's just my crazy harebrained idea, but I even have thoughts about how to make that happen.
We maybe could, this is sort of back to budget and fundraising.
Well, and I didn't put anything about a book in the budget, because I think we need to start small. Like, I don't want the finance committee to be like, are you smoking something?
No,
but
we could
this is
do fundraising.
4 times in a century this happens, right? And once in our lifetimes.
Right.
So, it just, again, it's that branding thing too. If everything is in 250s, 25s, 250s, it's symbolic, right? And at a time when libraries and schools across the country are maybe a little, patriotism, I think, is something that everyone could get behind if you soften the
just don't
edges,
look
right?
inside.
As I was gonna say, well, I can think of several states that might burn it before
Well,
they.
they might, but anyway, but the book aside, come back to the publication for a second. So, and this is a pilot test that Beth and I already worked on just before the pandemic, right? We did, I'm sorry, you might be able to, this is maybe easier to see.
I'm sorry, this is my printer.
That's okay.
It's not regular pages.
So this is a typical issue of Discover Concord magazine. We physically print 10,000 copies. Those go like hotcakes. For example, the fall issue, just came out last week. Dr. Jane Goodall is our cover story. We've already given away 5,000 copies of the magazine in less than 7 days. So the spring of this year, I think that's normal, that'll be fine. But what we want to add on to that is starting slowly. And so the blue is sort of it was very important to me too. I'm a little where I want to make sure that I am writing this line correctly. I want all of you to be holding me accountable too. I do own Discover Concord magazine, so I can make recommendations, but you know, if it comes to like discussing a budget, something, I will recuse myself because I want to be very above board with this. So one of the things that we did is, meeting my editorial team, independent of anything that Rev 250 might do, what would Discover Concord be doing on its own as a business? Well, we would be, for 2025, we would be increasing the number of copies we would print because we know we are going to get absolutely crushed with visitors. They're all going to want a copy of that. They're all going to want the information that'll be in there. So you see that already reflected in the blue part of this chart. The orange part is, well, what would we do differently to help the town optimize? I think what we were saying before is we want to own the story. We want that voice to be our own voice, not something put together by someone far away who's decided they know the story of Concord. So the idea is over time to be increasing the reach of these copies that will progressively have a higher share of voice talking about our revolutionary history and where it's propelling us forward. And the way we do that is Logan Airport, for example, has a big magazine rack at the luggage area. It costs something to put your materials there, and you have to print more materials. Beth was really helpful. We actually got these budget numbers together very quickly. So the idea is we start putting it at Logan Airport. As the tour bus bookings increase, Beth and I did an estimation of how that will ramp out over time, and we modeled that out. The trolley is off to a great start. It will become more frequent, more visitors on it. And then we did a really great pilot program just before the pandemic with concierges at the top 20 hotels in Boston. And they were so excited to get this material. And this was 3 years ago. As we get closer to Rev 250, they're going to be really wanting this material. So that's a great way to, and then this sort of fundamentally is showing you how this increases the ripple effect of the work we're doing here. So, you know, right now we're here in Concord, and anybody who comes to Concord can pick up the publication and learn about us. Yeah, I'm not looking at online. So for example, we posted the ebook 2 days ago with Dr. Jane Goodall's story in it. We've already had 20,000 interactions on that post. That's unusual. It's Dr. Jane Goodall, but it's a tool, but that's not even factored in here. This is just sort of physically getting further and further out and owning that share of voice. You know, we're expanding our Minuteman network. And so this is just kind of a visual to show you. And, you know, I did submit numbers around that. I'm not expecting the town of Concord to necessarily get behind all of that, but it's a good starting place. And I know there will be grants and other things out there that can help us meet that goal. I think there's probably also some individuals here in Concord who might like to see some of that happen. So,
I mean, for you financially, it's advertising, I presume that this is behind this now, but you're
Yes.
now publishing, I don't know.
yeah, we would need
40,000.
extra support. I mean, the businesses are not going to be able to afford to.
They
We
do all that.
already price our advertising. Like, I'll just say this as a disclaimer. This is not how I pay my rent. This is a
I'm sure
a
there's
give
lot.
back project.
Yeah.
I make about $2 an hour if I were to divide what we end up with at the end of the year.
That's my thought.
We
We
don't
should talk about
have,
the minimum wage at some point.
Yeah, well, I don't actually pay myself, so I guess I am
But
really,
that's a
I'm oppressing myself. horribly. But no, I have a partner, Cynthia, who lives in St. Louis. It's a long story, but we're very good friends. And she's totally on board with this too. We're just worried about covering the costs of,
Right.
putting it out there. And I know it's tempting to say, we'll just do everything online, but I think you'll agree there's something about having
Oh, no.
a
Yeah,
really
absolutely
high
right.
quality academic
no.
tone
Mhm.
piece.
Is it possible to get, because primarily these are area businesses, but if you were to get the Langham Hotel or any of those downtown.
Sure, yeah, I mean, if, especially as we get closer to the events,
Yeah, right.
where, yeah,
And if we're also thinking about, if you're thinking about really creating a business line out of 25,000 schools, there's probably a revenue generating.
yeah, none of that's factored into what I've
Mhm.
shown you here today. It's just, I just wanted you to know it was something that we are thinking about. So, yeah, so that's, I think the idea is that over time, I wanted to show you visually, both the share of voice within the publication will increase to match what we're doing, and then the expansion outward as well. And then by the end of it, we'll have the material that can be easily repurposed, repackaged into an enduring piece.
And remind us how you're thinking about the content. Like this is zooming in, zooming out, looking at moments.
Well, this is actually, I mean, again, if we were on our own, we have thoughts of what we do, but I would really like to see this committee having a very strong, essentially becoming an editorial advisory board
Right.
for anything to do with the Rev 250 related content.
Yeah.
Well, because
Yeah.
it will be, it tells the stories that we're trying to get, which is the inclusivity, the new
Yeah.
history, expanded history. I mean, concurrently with that,
Mhm.
and the historical commission, we are going for money, the CPC, I hope you say yes, for a whole new preservation plan. But one of the keys of it is a history of Concord,
Yeah.
which isn't just about the Minuteman.
No.
It's about Squassacham, that's the right name.
Well, and
It's
I
about-
think you've seen in the pages of the
You've done a
publication,
great job.
we make a point
Yeah.
of telling, the African-American stories, the indigenous people, the women of Concord,
You do a beautiful
other
job of
images.
that. I mean,
Yeah,
it is in fact a model for that.
well, it even comes down to frankly choosing the images that we
Mhm.
license to use in the publication
Right.
and
Yeah.
making
Yeah.
sure that there's a diverse representation.
Right.
Which is about America, where is
Yes.
America in 2025?
Yes.
It's about inclusivity.
Yeah. If it doesn't, this isn't worth it.
Right. You know, like when I asked about.
We can have a
how
little
long
parade and all,
sculpture,
and that'll be enough.
You know, the questions I think we are asking the American public, where are we in 2025? Have we lived
Exactly.
up to our promise? Where have we failed? What can we do differently? And let's look, the gloves off and the rose-colored glasses gone. Really, who is America? What is America to?
Mhm.
And that's where I think your publication has gone, and I think that's where I would like to see this whole thing go.
Well, we would all, and that's why the committee is as
Is
it
it
is.
as liberal as it is?
Yes, yeah.
No, but this is also about attracting the most visionary and inclusive thinking out there.
Yeah.
I mean, it may not please some visitors who want to come just rah, the flag and what happened.
But
at
they
the
can
battle.
do that if they want to.
Yeah,
I mean,
no,
They could pick out that piece.
that's the
that we're
nice
gonna-
thing,
That
is
will
you
be there
can,
with
you can present people, and we can have some of that in there too, it's we do, America has a lot to be proud of and good stories to tell. There's always room for improvement.
I mean,
in
like the
anything.
idea about soliciting stories from the area communities, when they all joined St. Mary's Corner, they
Right.
came from Reading, they came from all
Everywhere.
over.
Yeah.
And I don't think those towns get enough
No.
Yeah.
attention.
Right.
And so if we reach out to them saying we plan to gather these
Right.
stories
Yeah.
about
There you
your
go.
people
Right.
in 1775.
Mhm.
I love the exhibit that the museum has done with
Right.
the active bar line that shows you.
Yeah,
well,
where
So
everybody
who
comes
showed
from,
up at
yeah,
what time and
yeah.
how many from Reading and how many,
Yep.
yeah.
I mean, the
It's really
first person
amazing.
killed at the North Bridge was from Acton,
Acton.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, it is interesting. We did a post, I think it was not this past Memorial Day, but the year before. And it was a thank you to Amos, the captain who died, the
Mhm.
first one who died at the North Bridge. And it was basically honoring America's first fallen soldier.
Soldier, yeah,
And that post got, I think, 50,000
really
hits
interesting.
within.
Interesting.
Because
the way-
everyone
just the
could
way you
come
phrase it,
posting
America's
where?
first
Where
fallen
did you,
soldier.
Yeah.
where's your
Yeah,
posting?
It's on Facebook.
That's a
On
really
Facebook.
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, that's a.
And you
good
type
story
in
to be
what?
told.
And
Yeah,
was
Right there.
Acton, was Acton a
can
district
send
of
you help.
Concord?
No.
No,
it's
it was
its
its
own-
own-
So don't forget to leave.
Huh.
Fantastic. No, I'm sorry. No, I mean, that's what we have to be.
So does that
Right.
sound like at least a good starting
It's
place?
so
Yeah.
exciting. I mean,
Yeah.
that's really a
This is a
huge, I mean,
It's huge.
deliver, I mean,
It's huge.
that delivers for
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
task in a big way.
Yeah.
Well, when and if the time is right, it would mean a lot and help motivate the publication crew too, if they sort of had like the town's sort of, I don't know, seal of approval or,
Absolutely.
yes, this is our,
Mhm.
this is where we tell our story type of thing. I don't
mean,
know.
this is a little known story too.
Yeah,
It needs to be.
yeah.
Pretty rich.
And I believe I'm on the agenda for this next Thursday. And you should all, you can see why I asked Jen to be my clerk, as it were, my vice chair.
Mhm.
So if I can't be there, she can.
Perfect, yeah.
And, or she can join me even with me. I mean,
Right.
with whatever, and you can see why.
Right,
Okay, pretty quickly. So I wanted to make that
Yeah.
And
formal.
I like this point about having some owned media.
Yes,
You're right.
yes, our own proprietary voice. like,
Yeah.
You know.
Right.
I think it also, your deadlines, like will
Yeah.
help create
Yes.
our
Yes.
benchmarks.
Yes.
And like in
Yes.
a way that will help us tell
Absolutely.
the story in a
It's a
very
good point.
purposeful
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
It is a wonderful
Right,
visual,
Yeah.
way of looking at things.
yeah.
Okay, next agenda item, ready? Ready to
Okay.
go? Okay, so we have a variety of ways in which we want to think about using media, right, and
Right.
communicate. So what I want us to do is to take this chart that we received and add to it, brainstorm it, figure out what's not there. I mean, for instance, it's not just the globe, it's there. One of the things we might figure out is whether there are, oh, wait, I
Plus the
know.
globe is the heritage.
Where's the History Channel? Where's
Yeah,
CNN?
but that's
where
Where's,
the globe,
yeah,
radio, radio
okay.
That's what we're doing.
Go big or go
Okay,
home,
wait,
right?
but wait, I do want to tell you one more thing, that when we were planning a wedding reception for our son, and we knew lots of people were coming, I went around to hotels around our area on 128, there are now more. They would love this kind of thing.
Mhm.
Well,
So it's not just the hotels in Boston, it's the
Oh, yeah.
hotels.
Oh, yes.
All the-
Yeah.
All
Well,
the
that's,
regional hotels.
that's what that
I'm sure you
enlarging
know that.
circle is all
Okay.
about.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
know this.
So I can tell you the number if that helps. So I did have, so the company that does distribution of every brochure, they own every brochure rack in Massachusetts. It's a company called CTM Brochure. So I had him give me the counts, and it's 200 hotels in Greater Boston, plus in every terminal. And they estimate about 100,000 pieces of collateral per whatever you're distributing. So whether it's a magazine or a brochure, he said a lot of the just to give me an idea of how many we would need, it's about, he estimates about 100,000 a year. So
If
that's a
we-
huge radius.
Could we
Yeah.
narrow it down? Can we make a select? I mean, surely there must be.
You can do selections, yeah.
'Cause
I
we-
asked him to give me a current list so we could look at it and see what he has on his list. Because some hotels will only let you place in those racks because they pay a service fee or whatever, and then that company does the refreshment and everything. So I did ask to get a full list, but they do have Logan, they have a lot of other racks.
I mean, certainly if for nothing else, the spring of 2025 edition,
Right,
that should be everywhere.
Everywhere,
Yeah.
right, right.
Well, that's fantastic, and we'll look forward to seeing that list that we can then vet as we
Right.
get closer to the event. So we know that outreach is one of the things. Now let's keep adding. We
Well, I
have,
have a question. I was gonna ask Beth about this.
Okay.
I used to do PR like for the ICA, and I always had press lists.
I was
Yeah.
gonna
I'm sure
say,
you have a press
for
list
sure Beth has
that you
this.
could share with us.
We do have a press list, yes. And the town has one too. The town has a municipal press list that Aaron Stevens uses. And then I have one that goes to the more direct tourism So
Could-
it's not
Could we
huge.
get a copy of that for our next meeting to
Oh,
just,
yeah, absolutely.
we understand that?
Yeah,
If you could do that and bring the CTM list, it would be
Yep.
a good agenda item for the next meeting. Go ahead,
So
sorry.
Beth, how do you decide between the two of you, between the town and you, on who takes the lead on press?
So I vet everything through the Public Information Office. So my staff will generate the press release and then I send it for approval. And once it's on Town of Concord letterhead and approved for content, then Erin will send it out to her local content, but then I send it out to our bigger distribution list. So it's one and the same sort of. I generate the content. And then I also have some independent press people that reach out to me directly, and the state reaches out directly to me looking for stories.
So the big question I have though is, where is the press office for this stuff? Is that the?
Is that you, Beth?
Well, I mean, it's the
not me.
town. So, and Erin is actually changing roles. So they are,
No, great.
she's still here. She's taking over a senior planner for transportation role. So that is changing. But there will be a public communication officer, just like there always has been. So that comes out of the town manager's office. So I think the answer is all press related things may go through that office. I can help facilitate that. I have staff that can write. One of my staff writes for Jennifer for the magazine for lots of things and does our press releases. So we certainly write more with a tourism slant than a municipal government slant.
Oh, we have a decision, it sounds to me, like that we as a committee need to make. We can certainly ask the town to send out things to their network. I mean, that's very possible, but we may want to take ownership of some independent push. That doesn't have, it does not have to be vetted by the town. I mean, I did it through Aaron Stevens because I was asked to. And so I did that. But in the future, if there's something we want that has a particular character to it, or has a particular accent or a particular syllable, I think we should feel free to do that without going through Aaron. What do we think?
I think it needs to be coordinated. I'm a
Yeah.
little concerned about.
I would want Beth's eyes on anything like
Yeah.
that, just because Beth is very keyed into what else is happening in other parts of the town.
Because I'm not
and-
talking about events. I'm just talking
No, no,
about.
But
like
it's kind of
developing-
nuanced.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, Jennifer's right. I don't actually have the authority. There is a public information officer for a reason. So, and the town itself has policies about who can generate press, who can talk to the press. So I am always very, I will talk to the press, but I always let Erin know. If somebody calls me, it goes through the public information office. You know, we do get film crews, we get all kinds of things, but my understanding is that the policy for the town, and that I believe that covers all committees as well, is that things do need to be vetted through that office.
One person that will replace Aaron, could he, she be a part of our committee? I mean, if.
Yeah, you could have I mean, I think, I don't know, actually, that's a good question, Melissa, I don't know.
Without
But-
something kind of here.
But
because-
Beth
Beth
is on
should
the
be that
committee,
person.
But
right? Beth is on this committee.
Yeah, I can just be the liaison, you know, but I do think she's still gonna vet that whoever takes over that communications office probably is vetting everything that goes out of any committee, any department, same thing.
I mean, the thing is, there's one line around vetting, right? And so I could see vetting, but
They wouldn't be
Mhm.
writing it or crafting
they
it.
wouldn't be writing,
No.
and then who speaks for the committee?
that's another key part. Who talks for the press?
That would be,
Who's the
wouldn't that be
official
Henry
spokesperson?
Henry
To the press.
right?
It could be Henry Dane.
That, again, I think
Or
that's
it
what,
We'd be best served if there were some surrogates.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that, one thing I do.
That would be you, Diane.
There's a lot of things I don't do well, there's one thing I do well, I'm a good public relations person.
Yeah, it makes total sense.
So I can speak
Right.
So
for
that
our
makes you,
committee.
because you chair the committee.
Because I
Yeah.
chair the
Yeah.
committee.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think we get pushback on that one, I don't, I mean, in fact, I'm
Well-
pretty sure we would.
Well, that's
So-
your
we
role
just,
in the committee, it makes
we do
sense.
need to keep in mind though, that the magnitude of this event and the
Yes.
types of people and press who will be here.
Mhm.
I would love to see whoever the smaller pool of spokespeople are. I'd really love to see a media training happening
I agree.
across committees, town government, et cetera. We are all speaking with the same message
It
points,
is
et
critical,
cetera.
absolutely
Yeah.
critical. I mean, one would not agree to speak to the press
Yeah.
about that.
Mhm.
Thank you very much. I'll get back to you.
Right.
And it would probably be useful for us to have some kind of media training.
A media training,
and
yeah.
Just a syncing up on the message.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that our information officer would be the one to lead that initiative,
Yep.
wouldn't it?
Yeah, and she's done it. There is documents, there's like a social media handout like that all staff get, because my staff handles social media, for example. But Erin has it, she's administrator, so she can see what we're posting. And you know, there are things that she does have, and I could be wrong, but I feel like there might be something in the committee handbook, which I know we all got and it's on a dusty shelf. But I feel like there might be something in there about
Yeah.
a representative of the town and what is approved.
I would really love to even propose to the finance committee to carve out, it's probably about 25 grand to do a proper media training for anyone who's going to be in front of a camera or the press, just to, it's a different skill set, as you know.
I do.
It's because point number one, just because someone asks you a question, you don't have to actually answer said
Right.
question. It's just a way to get people.
See what you did with the 25.
Yeah. I don't do media training, by the way. It's just-
Not this.
25.
When should we approach the FinCom? First we need a real number.
Or a real
Yeah.
budget.
I think we need a budget before I think we're still in the dreaming phase, but we really
I'll
need a
tell you,
budget.
one of the reasons Carrie's on, one of many reasons Carrie's on this committee is she did this for Nancy Pelosi, and she has done it for, what's his name?
So,
Seth Moulton. So go.
yeah, go.
Do you want me to find, what do you want me to, what?
So you do media training.
Oh, I do need, I mean, yes, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if you want like outside support, but yeah, I do media training.
Well,
We'd like to
we
do
can
it.
hire you.
Yes.
We'd like to do it with the resources within the.
Yeah. We'd like to do it for free.
You didn't say
Hey,
that.
no, I think- wait,
If you can
get that,
support-
we should great
If
dinner.
you can support,
For babysitters.
Some of our board don't lie.
Yeah,
Okay,
There you
dinner
go.
and money for a
Babies.
babysitter. Done. Okay, cool. So you're
No,
doing
media-
media training.
I'm happy to do media training. I love media training. It's the best part of PR, in my opinion. But I think it would certainly be part of the, I think we need to have a bigger conversation
Yeah.
about budget, and it's just
Right.
one
Right.
line
And,
item.
Yeah.
who's
and it
trained?
sounds like we should let this new information officer,
Get her,
Up here.
give her feedback.
Yeah.
before we- Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Rick
But I think the
Laughlin.
bigger question on that, on this public officer, is we do need to figure out like a very concrete process for who is managing press, who are they calling, who is, like, who is doing what. And if that is Beth or that person, it doesn't really matter, but I think if we say like, so-and-so's in charge of print, so-and-so's in charge of tea, like,
Right.
it will get way too chaotic. We need one point person that everybody is supporting,
Right.
right?
Yes.
in my opinion.
Yeah,
Yeah,
agreed. Totally
So
agree.
you're saying that one point person for all outreach?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
They are press contact.
Yeah.
Yes, we
They're
need
they're
one
on a
press
press
contact.
release as the press
And
contact.
then I believe that like Jim manages the print, but the reporter goes to this person and says, I'm gonna have you work with my colleague Jim, whoever, whatever our
Right.
process is, there needs to be one person who is. in charge.
100%.
Yeah, and conversely too, not everything needs to be a press release. So for example, Jim, if you have an idea for an article that you'd like to run in the Concord Bridge, you could draft that article, run it by the information officer and say, hey, listen, this is part of what we're doing with the committee, just touching base. Is there anything in here that causes you any concern? And they could be like, no, you're good. And then go ahead. It's just sort of making sure we've got that person looped in.
So for all content development for,
Anything that's
Anything.
official coming out of the committee,
Okay,
I think,
yeah.
right? Beth, shouldn't we?
My understanding is that's how the town prefers to operate. And again, I don't have an opinion one way or another that I can share. But I do,
And
that is how we operate.
I haven't heard that from anybody on our committee. I've
No.
heard nothing about having to go through the town for anything. It's very interesting.
That's a little terrifying.
Well, yeah, but the question,
But a relief too.
Maybe they haven't thought about it like we have.
well,
I
maybe
think
they haven't, but I mean, you know, they're planning also, I mean. they're
Or
thinking about all sorts of
maybe,
things.
maybe then if we do have, say we have a press contact for this committee, and that person meets with the information officer maybe once a month and says, here's what's on the docket, here's what we're developing,
Mhm.
just letting you know if there's anything you'd like input on,
Some
you know,
coordination.
yeah.
Yeah, I actually wonder if, and maybe, I don't have no concept of what the budget would be for a project like this, but if there is the ability to hire a PR consultant to manage everything, to create a plan that would include
Mhm.
include all of these aspects, like have one person who partners with the town. I mean, if we truly are talking about like, reading some of the information in the press release, like presidents coming and
Yeah.
before,
Yeah.
like you need a professional operation and
Right.
that you can do that for a
Mhm.
lot of money, or you can do it for, you know, I think if you do it on the cheap, you will get on the cheap
Right.
results, yeah.
You can get, I mean, the town has used consultants for many things, so that sometimes that is an easier way around. If, again, of course, it comes down to budget, but we have somebody that did the tourism studies for us. She's an independent PR consultant, and she just, because she's a good person and she does things for me all the time. She sends me writers all the time. So we could hire somebody like that the town has a relationship, that has contracted with before. You know, this committee can vet them, of course, and you're right, it can be as inexpensive or as expensive as you want, but I do think depends on the scope, and it's not just our subcommittee, it's the events committee, it's the, you know, other committees that are planning on doing something. Like, we're supporting all of those other subcommittees by promoting their projects too.
Right.
So it could be a lot of work.
Yeah, now that's the reason I want to ask a question. I believe, at least as I've conceived it, and not necessarily accurately as I'm learning as we talk, as I've conceived it, we would, each of us, take a particular area because of our backgrounds, because of our expertise, and focus on that as things develop. I mean, because we don't know what they're going to be doing. We don't know what the events are going to be, but we're going to ask them to stay in communication with us, and we're going to promote them. We know that part of it. But if we hired a public relations person and we said, okay, listen, this is going to happen, we to some degree lose, we don't lose control, we do lose control, is what I'm trying to say.
Right, source.
And I think, so is there a middle ground?
So you're talking more about maybe a PR coordinator. It's, you're
Yes.
not doing, right? I mean, that's what I heard
I'm
from
just
Carrie.
trying to
was-
I think someone, you don't lose any of that, like, so if Toby has a relationship with Chronicle, like, he would call Chronicle and say, like, we're doing this, but there's one person who says, we have pitches into Chronicle, Channel 5, whatever, you know, like, who knows?
Or
who knows
Toby
all
can
of it.
call that press person and say, they need a media kit with the frequently asked questions, the backgrounds, the
Yeah.
bios of our key town people, the suite of photos that they can use,
Yeah.
you
All
know,
the contact
the
follow-up.
raw
Yeah, like, who
material.
produces that, for example? Who produces
I
the
mean,
media
that's a
kit?
lot, yeah.
Yeah.
The media kit.
But what I'm.
I have one that I produced for the visitor center that I send out when anybody asks, but it's pretty, it's,
So you need to be modified and
Right.
amplified for.
yeah, you would have to have a good kit that has a current list of events, the website information, the, you know, contacts for everything, you know, it's not a small job.
What I am hearing that could be a good higher ground.
Yeah.
Is if we did have some kind of control within the committee.
Yeah.
That could manage whatever outside consultants or.
I mean, that consultant could work for this committee.
Absolutely,
Yes,
you know,
absolutely.
and
But how much is it going to cost? And was
Yeah.
the town funded?
I don't
Well,
know.
right, that's the question.
And they're gonna.
Put it in our dream budget.
Help that the
Oh, absolutely.
committee is
Like-
doing, because
like-
we're, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the part I'm not totally getting is,
Well, because in the executive committee, Rick Laughlin is the treasurer, but
yeah,
there has been no treasurer's report.
yeah.
I have seen nothing in writing that reflects how much money we have, how much money we're going to have, what part of we submitted requests from both Stuart and Beth on the website
Right.
kind of
Right.
issues, and we submitted something And that's what's been lost in my email. My email has eaten that particular email you
Which
sent me.
part?
and You need to send it
budget
again,
part?
please, the budget part. You can delete it.
And do we know where our budget would fall?
We don't have a clue. There's been no treasurer's report.
Yeah.
But we did, thank you, my dear. We did pass along all sorts of information.
Right.
And so but we've had no feedback as
So
to,
if you want a cautionary tale when you meet with the executive committee, to Carrie's point
I would love it.
about inviting the president. We've only done that twice before, for the 100th and for the 200th.
We
And
know we
both
need
times
to
it
build a
turned out
better
badly.
platform.
Well, no, wait, when Ford came, it wasn't so much a bad thing, it was, we had people revolt.
There were
We had 40,000
protests.
people show up
Well,
that who were choosing to do a counter demonstration.
Right.
And we
Yeah.
really were overwhelmed by the counter demonstration.
But people had a good experience from that.
Mhm.
I think the more serious problem is who's
When he's-
president, we may not want.
we may not want.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah,
hang
that's not
on,
what
no, we can't, we
We'll
can't.
have- we'll have to invite the
We can't. But I was told by Mike Lawson, just to make this easier, that the person who would do that inviting is the governor of Massachusetts, because he and I got in a very interesting conversation about whether.
Well, they still might show up here.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. That, I mean, part of it. That we might invite somebody from the royal family. So that
I was
there's,
gonna say,
there's the British
right.
representation and then there's the American
Can we
representation.
give them both guns and see what happens?
Yeah.
Wait, no, bad idea, scratch that.
Still
Not as
murder on
You know, when the Queen came and she spoke at the State House, she referenced Concord and Lexington.
Yeah.
This is wonderful.
Yeah.
So, but she can't do it.
No,
She
she
can't.
so
So
she should not be there.
she won't be here.
My feeling on,
Just
forgive me if this is like not
No,
Is
please.
this Matthew?
a welcome suggestion, but
Is this
I actually
urgent or
don't
can I
think
call
we
you
need to
back?
worry about this
Okay.
yet.
I don't.
I think we need to take a step back and think about what is our strategy, like what's our
yes,
ultimate
we do
goal, what
call
does
back
this,
before I
like, what do we
leave.
want this to look like in 2025,
Okay.
and then work
Thank you.
backwards from
Thank
there,
you.
so like,
Bye.
I
We
think
need to create an
actually
organizational structure.
the exercise that Jennifer took us through of like what her narrative will be over the next 2 years, we should flesh that out as a committee for our own purposes. Like, I think that was really smart.
Maybe we could start with that.
Because
and-
that helps us figure out, okay, we need to be here, and then when you're at this point, when you're at the point where you're at, you know. Like one of, you know, here, we're here, and the narrative is X, and
Mhm, mhm.
who's the appropriate, then we go to tactics last. We go to like, okay, Chronicle would love this because blah, 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 blah,
Right.
blah.
Mhm,
So we know what we're talking about, and then we think about who we'll pitch it to.
I agree, and the one thing is that, and so this is how we've been thinking, what are the other platforms to tell the story? So in
Sure,
addition
it
to
can't
this,
just be that.
is there, you know, what are the television
Right.
ideas, what are the social media
But I think before
platforms?
we even get there, we need to
Yeah.
figure out what we want to tell.
Exactly, yeah,
Well, can
agree.
I ask?
Yeah.
This is what I wanted to ask at the beginning. How long is this? What is the culminating event?
Yes.
What is the end point?
Yeah.
Is it just a?
The
April
culminating
19th
event
It's
is
April
parade.
19th.
It's the
2000
parade and the,
parade.
and the ball.
And then
the ball.
And the
There's a
ball.
ball.
I mean,
Can we
that's the
do-
So
culminating
these are
all
the
event.
things-
events that are on.
All
Yeah.
things that into
Right.
that final day.
Yes, and I think I mentioned. to
I
you
think
when
it
I
leads
first
to the
sat down.
reenactment, doesn't
Well,
it?
there is reenactment,
That's in the.
and that's gonna
morning.
be done by
That's-
the National Park. people.
Right,
So
but
the
that's
reenactment-
like, that's the reason why we're gonna get 3 million visitors instead of 1 million.
Yeah, when I said a million
Right.
visitors, my husband said, no way, I said, wait and see.
Right.
All right, because
We
he
can't.
just doesn't.
So, but it's-
Or does
It's
this
like
lead, or
Airbnb
does this
my
lead
house.
to like?
We talked about that last time, it was our Airbnb
The
discussion.
idea is it's culminating in that weekend, like it. the
Yeah, in that
culminating
weekend.
Now, there's this dawn salute and blah, 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 and then on Monday, the parade, and then usually it's Saturday night before is the ball.
Right, so imagine replicating that event, the Patriots Day event, imagine
Only
replicating
amplified.
it with on hormones.
Yeah.
So.
And imagine, you know, how that's going to look, because
I want someone on a horse in the middle of the night on the.
Yeah,
A real horse.
Drunk on a horse.
But here's the thing, I mean, I think to your point, right, so there are these ceremonial events, and
Yeah.
these are like key events.
Right.
Great,
But there's a message, there's a story that we
Yeah.
want to tell.
And we have 2 years to tell it.
And we have 2
Yeah.
years to
Right.
get there.
Yeah.
And it's probably one about shared and self-governance and
Mhm.
revitalizing democracy. I mean, there's,
Yeah, there's a
right,
lot.
there's a lot that we wanna pack into this, right?
Well, so the other thing I would like to understand is,
Me
if
too.
we represent the work, or we are promoting the work of all these other committees, the events committee, like Gary's, sculpture, or whatever the.
Is monument
monument
committee, yeah.
The poem.
Are we, is
Are
one
we
of
the
us
press
being
office for
designated
them?
to be a liaison to that, or how are we
No, they're
knowing what
in,
they're
no,
doing?
you asked it before, and it's been a good question, and I've run it by Henry, and we talked about various things, and
He
we
never
kind of
answers.
hopes. Well, no, he did, no, I mean, he and I had a good conversation about it, and he, in fact, did you write to him independently and ask? I mean, that'd
No,
be
well,
great,
I
that'd be
asked him
wonderful.
to participate in my historic issues thing next week. and he
Got you,
said,
oh, good, I know he said he was coming, right?
Yeah.
Yes, fantastic, but what I was gonna, but you can, anybody, do anything, I don't think, with a good answer from somebody, fantastic. We didn't feel in control, and I know what I mean. Anyway, so that's the reason you guys are here, but what I was gonna say is that the, what was I gonna say, it was really important.
About the other,
We don't need to be on other people's committees
Oh, yeah,
because we are a
there's gonna
subcommittee.
We're gonna
and you'll
insist that
report
they
back up.
collaborate through me back to our committee.
so
And that's-
you'll be reporting back to us about, there's gonna be a
Constantly.
new monument.
Absolutely.
And we need to
And the
incorporate
whole,
that
the
in
whole
our.
collaboration process is
Right.
critical.
Yeah.
And we're not gonna be necessarily promulgating anything except articles and publications and communications in that regard.
But if we
But-
know there's a new
But if we
monument,
know,
Yeah.
we take
bingo,
pictures of it, we
and
talk
can
about
do
it.
something, and
you
that's
know.
exactly right, and then that will then fall under our purview.
Mhm,
So, the key is collaboration,
mhm,
and that's gonna matter more than almost anything else.
mhm,
I mean, communication always does, doesn't it?
mhm.
So I will emphasize that next Thursday.
Hmm.
I mean, everybody will think it's early, and oh yes, of course,
Mhm.
but we're gonna have to really do that with an exclamation mark.
Mhm,
I can,
Surprises.
yeah, I can independently meet with Rick Laughlin
mhm.
if we don't get a treasurer's report next Thursday. And I can sit down with him and say, look, here are some things that we're thinking, but here are our needs beyond what we've
Mhm.
already requested.
Mhm.
And how much money is there? And I don't know that there has been a date set for Henry to speak to the finance committee. But at some point, he will be doing that.
Yeah.
And, but I don't believe that has been ironed out.
Does he
yet.
have, has he been fitted for his armor?
Well, you know, the chairmanship has changed. And it will make a difference. Because I watch, yes, I watch that committee like a hawk with a view now.
So who's the new chair?
The new chair is, I've got to be able to do it right now. I can see his face, but that's not in my
No, it's
register right
like-
now. What, is it? I think so.
So
What's his name?
what do you have to do to change the story from the story we told 50 years ago?
A lot.
Yeah.
Because there's a Liberty flag up there that is sitting up on Old Berrien Mound. There's the grog being served to both sides before they go into battle. There's the soldiers running through Sleepy Hollow to get over there and get them at the wall. This is a far more fascinating story than the way we've told it. And
Right.
so if the events group is just going to roll out the same thing
Right.
again, it's
Yeah, I don't think they are though.
That would not be my impression that that was what they would.
But
want to
maybe
do.
Given
we
who's
could-
on there. it
Maybe we
seems-
could make a point of putting together, okay, so maybe
Mhm.
first we walk through your brainstorm idea of what
The contact
even before we
pieces.
try to lay it out time-wise, maybe we make a running list of, say, the 50 fascinating stories that haven't been told that should be told, right? And then we can kind of plot out when those should be told and how, but then we share that with the other committees and they can, you know,
And I-
Hollow should, you know, maybe do something in there, you know.
Yeah, I would be concerned that the executive committee, in theory, should be setting the tone. It should be setting the goals for the whole big thing, you know, and I don't know yet what their thoughts are. So I feel like it's hard for us to come up with a plan and what we want to do. I feel like we're almost leading the executive committee, like we're coming up with the strategy and the brainstorm and the stories that we want to tell, and we haven't heard from them what their overall vision is.
Communicate with them.
Does
about
that make sense? And I'm really concerned. I hate to say the budget again, but I am very concerned that there's not a big fund of money for anything. Like, I don't know where the money for a sculpture would come from or a ball or any of that. Like, I don't have access to a lot of the budget information, but just seeing what I know that the celebrations committee usually works with, you know, as an annual event, it's a pretty small amount. And I mean, I brought this up 3 years ago when I got here about putting some money aside. And I got pushback just for supporting the tourism with putting money aside. And I said, well, you should start a fund. That's how most communities get started. 10 years before an anniversary, they put money aside every year. So that hadn't even been talked about. So I think we can do a great job as a committee. We have great ideas and a lot of creativity, but if we are not given an overarching strategy to tie into or a budget to support us, it's almost like we're spinning our wheels.
Okay, now I don't think we're spinning our wheels, but I appreciate your frustration. I do appreciate your frustration, but I think spinning our wheels is actually part of what we have to do in order to decide which direction we're going to go. Two things. I think the November 16th meeting is intended to try not to
November 3rd.
October 16th.
October 16th meeting is in fact intended to try to be an inclusive rather than a here's what it's going to be, here's how we're going to do it. An opportunity to really hear lots of voices, and we'll all be there and we'll listen and we'll take bad notes and we'll bring them back to our effort. Number two, then the larger one on November 16th, third, thank you. Just keep
November 3rd, yeah.
November 3rd, keep speeding me along, I might do it right. On November 3rd, for the public hearing, we'll hear more. And we'll have more ideas. And so I don't think that that's, I mean, we can't do the wonderful thing you're talking about yet, I don't believe, until we've heard what kind of inclusive voice emerges. And then listen to the executive committee, distill that, and arrive
and
at
then
some
come out with a
sort
content.
of a plan in their own minds.
You know,
Am I wrong in saying that?
No, I mean, to me, that's what the effort of this thing on the 16th, that's one way to connect with a lot of people who represent interests in the town.
Right.
It seems like a kind of a simple strategy, and then to open it up. I wish they'd done it 3 years ago.
I know.
But I know we are.
We
They didn't.
are.
you know, somebody mentioned last time, I think it might have been you, Toby, that, okay, we know everyone likes the ball, right? We have,
I don't know.
we
Not
have
me,
two balls
Uh-huh.
before 2025. Why not use that as a fundraiser to raise the funds that we need to do things right
And to get.
in
So,
2025?
you know, when I was looking up who's doing the events, so John Arena's head of the events. Well,
Yeah.
events, I'm presuming he's thinking what they've been doing in the past,
Mhm.
rather than, you know, getting the Rolling Stones to come in for a ball. I'm making that up, but instead of a traditional, because I totally get, it's part of the reason people don't participate so much, because it's old and tired, and it isn't 50 years ago.
Right.
So we need the committee who does the events to shake it up. And it
Come on, shake it up, baby, now shake it up. Okay.
I mean, I
Yeah,
would think this
I'm on
committee,
this.
Diane, I do think that with this committee, we've got a great pipeline to share with them the stories that we think that we want to communicate about Concord and about this
Absolutely.
history that made Jean.
I mean, if no one in the executive committee yet has a coalesced vision, there's nothing wrong with gently suggesting
Right.
some concepts
yeah.
that could be
well,
considered.
Or is it possible for you?
I already brought up
Yeah,
Jim's idea,
Yeah,
and
Yeah.
it, you know, it sat there.
yeah.
There was a lot else on their agenda. It wasn't really on the agenda,
Right.
but I did insert it,
Right.
and we'll just keep working on it still. Or,
I-
yeah, go.
I mean, I've even talked to staff people who, one very new staff person who said, can I talk to you about this 250 thing? I sure hope the town isn't just going to pat itself on the back and rah the flag and
Right.
the.
Did you have this conversation with Dan?
Yes.
Yeah, so did I.
In detail, and I said, absolutely, well, certainly not me and not my committee, I don't think, and not folks like Jim, that no, it's really an opportunity to really tell the story.
Yeah.
Inclusively.
Inclusively.
Well, you know, it's the Sons of Liberty's job in 1775 was to suppress all the people who were not supportive of the revolution. And we know the names who they suppressed. We know the names of the Sons of Liberty who went and suppressed them. but we don't tell that story.
No, but I always love David McCullough, who said, it was a third, a third supported, a third hated it, and a third didn't care.
Right.
And, and that's just the white American male,
Right.
not the Native American.
Right.
And the women.
And the
The women were very much.
Right.
Yeah.
Were they there?
But it does feel like there is a research
Yeah.
thing that we can do to start to
Yeah.
build out.
To start
Just
playing.
highlight-
I know
This year.
history buff, you, I know.
Well,
I don't,
we
I'm
could-
getting to know the
That's
rest
what I
of
was saying, if we did a brainstorm list of maybe 25 things to
Right.
consider
And
that are not
storylines.
commonly shared as part of our
Right.
story.
I mean, there is a collaborative process that we
Mm-hmm.
could do this and convene the right people.
Mhm.
There's a
Just get
history,
this
just so you know, remember, there's a history committee that is being
There is?
organized by David Woods.
Oh,
And he's in charge of the history
Mhm.
committee.
okay.
And he, I think, is, exercising a pretty broad
Mhm.
brush, but how broad?
Mhm.
And we don't want to step on David Wood's foot,
Right.
but we also have the independence, and that's what I was trying to say about the independence. I think that despite what David Wood's committee is doing, and I presume at some point I'll know what it is, because if we've heard nothing, we aren't sharing minutes,
Right.
who knows? So sharing minutes is one of the major things that in my collaboration note that I will make on Thursday.
Mhm.
Well, those minutes are supposed to be posts anyway.
We're
Right.
well aware of that, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm particularly worried because David Wood is chairing that committee,
Uh,
because
David was at the Concord Museum.
the Concord Museum is concluded decades ago that Concord's history ended at the end of the Civil War. And that nothing interesting happened since. And only the resources that were gathered by the mid-20th century are useful resources. So he's not reading and following all of this other stuff that's come out in the last couple decades. And I'm not sure in his mind he can conceptualize how far the story has moved in really even the last 5 or 10 years.
Right.
So who else, may I ask, do you know who else is on this?
We've been given no list of people who are on the committee. I think we can go online and figure it out right now, but I would lose
But
track.
I.
Somebody could
agree
do
with
that.
I mean, and I also don't want it like.
It's a
to feel
subcommittee.
eccentric. There's so
Right.
much more out there. There's so much new history being written.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
The
and
National
it's-
Park Service could help us in that
Right.
regard.
Hello?
Good afternoon. The library will close in 30 minutes. The children's library will close in
Big
15
brothers
minutes.
watching.
Thank you.
I have one other question. Has someone reached out to Simon Cataldo to figure out how we bring him into this process?
Oh,
What?
I just
Jesse's
talked
on
with
my
Simon
committee.
for an hour this morning. What,
Okay.
you want me to talk to him again? But
I just want, since he's gonna be elected in November and represent us, he in a three-way race, he took 54% of the vote.
yeah, well,
And-
Well,
there is a Republican running.
Yeah.
The what?
There is a Republican, yeah.
Right.
But it will be important to get the state
Yeah.
reps and the
He's-
region.
Right.
Oh, actually, his wife is on my historical commission.
Okay.
Jesse's on.
Just
the
so you're so,
Yeah.
okay, fantastic, okay.
So he, yeah.
So she'll be there, I mean, and I know Simon, we could ask him to do something, he'd be there.
he
Sure.
should,
Right.
yeah.
Wouldn't he
He'd be
great?
all over this,
Right.
right?
Yeah. So in what way would you like me to involve him?
And I just want to be thoughtful about where would be the best place to use him, but we want to have, as he starts the State House, that he have this front. and
Have
center.
that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh, yeah.
well, I will talk with him, and I had to talk with him about something I was gonna do anyway, so I will talk with, if that's okay, I will talk with Simon.
You chair, you have to-
It doesn't look like the subcommittees have been posted yet.
I don't think they have.
I think we're too
Yeah.
new.
Because,
I
because the
mentioned-
other thing is there are so many historians who, I mean, fabulous historians.
Historians, oh,
who
yes.
Use downstairs who would, I believe, love to give back to this town. So I don't know how David connects with them. I sure know that Anka or Leslie before her
Mhm.
do.
Right.
Right.
I mean, I think it's critical, but, then there's the Arts and Literature
Right.
Committee,
Right.
and there's the History
There's a
Committee.
lot of committees.
Oh, yeah, did you
Yeah.
not get,
Yeah,
you
they're
did, you
kinda-
got a copy of the press release, you know how many there were, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there are all these different committees,
One,
and,
two,
Yeah.
three,
and our
four,
job
five,
is to
six,
promote what
seven,
they're
eight,
doing, but
nine.
at the same time,
There
when I
are
watched
10.
which way it was going, I thought,
There are
oh,
10
we have to more than
subcommittees.
promote what they're doing.
We
We
can
have
help
to,
feed
we
them.
need to
We need to
have,
help tell
that's
the
exactly
story.
right.
Right.
So maybe one of the questions for the executive committee is to say, would it be okay with you if we ran an exercise to understand what our like narrative and messaging is? and what our key talking points are, what our, you know, what we hope to,
Milestones
what our
for-
milestones are. And that's not set in stone. That's just sort of a framework.
And would that be useful to then present the results of that exercise to the executive committee
Mhm.
for consideration?
Yeah, and so it would be a workshop, then we would bring it to them, so it's like, that is under the purview of communications.
Yeah,
Say
it
like,
is.
this is,
That's
and they could even participate in it if like a couple of them wanted to.
Okay.
So,
You want to keep that in the notes?
I think that's a
Yeah.
good insight.
So I'd double down, I would second that motion, I think it's a
Good.
great starting point, and I think it also raises this point, like, we do need to create some kind of distributed infrastructure for internal communications.
yeah,
And that does feel like something that our committee could.
oh, like,
create.
they're actually, do you mean like a, Slack?
It could be that.
I mean, Slack for
we have
a
to figure out
million
what works.
subcommittees actually would be.
I don't-
I mean, we have to figure out the right.
How do we-
I know we're talking
I don't
about
know.
like an older.
I don't know if it's just-
No, but guys,
I
we
don't
have
know.
open meeting law. We're not
Yeah, we
allowed to
can't do
communicate
Slack,
outside
right.
of
So
this.
how we do this right matters, but I think
Yeah.
there does need to be some way of,
Collective.
I mean, look, this is not the monarchy or the British system,
No, but
right?
it is
We're
Concord.
doing-
Have you ever gone foul of the?
Well, but this is how the revolution was waged, right?
Is this
So-
committee of correspondence?
Yes, it is. It
By the
really
way,
is.
so.
It is the committees of correspondence.
Oh,
I looked this
is
up, like,
there-
oh, wait.
Is there a budget? Is there a budget for messenger doves? Messenger pigeons? Do we have a budget for that?
I mean, in fairness, that is how the US Post Office was created.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
From-
Yeah.
from that.
And
Town
all those
committee
poor
meetings.
pigeons are dead, we're just looking at another whole thing, which is where we don't wanna go.
But
Okay.
we do need to figure out how this works, because there's a huge feedback loop
Yeah.
that needs to.
Well, you're exactly right.
Well, so
and
how do people do this within the town committee, open?
With great difficulty.
Great
it's-
difficulty.
It's so.
You
hard.
can't-
We would have to appoint a couple people to run the workshop, and then they could plan it outside of it, right?
Yeah, two
Two
people
people, you
can
just can't
talk.
have three.
But
Can't
you
have
do it
three.
serially, you can't go
Right,
like, you
right.
can't try to
No.
convince me of your idea.
Wait, this is what this
Open
is-
meeting.
Open meeting law. So like,
More than two
if,
people.
if we all bump into each other in a cafe, we are not allowed to
Just talk
discuss
about
shop
the-
outside of
Oh,
an
two
official
people
meeting.
may,
Two people
Two,
can,
but
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 if
if
a
a
third
third
one,
joins us, we
Right.
may not.
you gotta
Right.
talk about the weather.
This is.
This is
Hey,
beautiful.
This is a
You haven't
full
taken the class?
Okay.
It's fun.
Nobody knows that on your phone was Jen. FaceTiming with you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I have a question though, was this posted somewhere, this
Oh,
meeting?
yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It
I
has to
had
be.
I had to post
48
it, I had to
hours
post
ahead of
our
time.
agenda, I had to get everything in
Yeah.
there. No, I'm
And
a doobie on those things.
There
and I know
are,
what
there
the
are
rules
people in
and I-
this town who
I would double
watch.
down,
Sure.
there are
Oh,
ways
there
to
are.
facilitate.
I know.
I have
those
been
phone
on
calls.
this.
About something.
No, no,
Yeah.
my-
Running up to the Revolutionary War, it was police and correspondence led to all the other things, correspondence surrounding towns. And because they needed to do that, as soon as it ended, they didn't need community correspondence anymore, so they created social circle. And the same people who were there started going to the social circle, so they could have that conversation before every town meeting.
And then when I
I think we know what we need to do.
Well.
No, but you're not allowed to do
But the
that.
social circle got kicked out early 20th century in terms of having any.
No, you know, the name social circle is something Boston has picked up to raise money for candidates running for office. Around the country, not locally, but raise money to support.
Well, does our
Candidates.
social circle know that?
I think I trademarked that.
Right.
Okay, guys, going back around again, we still haven't done this, something that I still think is important, which is to brainstorm all the various ways in which we hope connections will happen. And I think that's important, and I'll tell you why I think it's important, is that we want to use our brains right now to say, all right, these are the many ways in which, if we decide that we need money for a PR consultant, we can make that determination. I would talk about it with Mike, and I mean, with,
Can I put one tiny recommendation? I think we can offer up a hybrid model where at least initially, say the first 2 years,
Oh,
we're
yeah,
probably
that's what I was
okay on
thinking.
our own.
yeah.
But as we get to like
As we
6
get
months
closer,
out,
I agree.
yeah,
Oh, no, I agree entirely, Jen. I
Oh,
just
okay,
didn't
yeah.
articulate what I
Right.
was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you could add to the calendar when the provincial congress met in the right tavern. And it was-
1774.
several times.
I-
And,
Right.
and but Kevin's trying to figure out a program that they could bring in one high school student from each of the towns that was represented at the provincial congress and have them reenacted with giving them interesting
But you
questions.
know, they're trying to fix that building up.
Right.
It's not, it's going to be
And what-
closed for 2 years.
And we can't give high schoolers beer.
Right.
Root beer.
But,
Come
and,
and root for our.
and we could find that for our narrative, that it might make sense not only to reenact, but to actually have them have a provincial congress.
Right.
Well, but
Raise
that's
the
an
issues of
activity.
Yeah, that's,
Right.
that's an activity in the
Yes.
schools.
Right.
And I've already made connections with Laurie Hunter and
Yeah, I
we're
thought-
meeting next week.
Right.
You're,
No, I'm just, I mean, I know 50 years ago, school participation was a big deal.
yeah, well, I have a meeting with Laurie Hunter next week to sit down and talk about the many ways in which the schools might become involved. And do we do it through PTAs? If the teachers are too busy, do we do it through teachers' history departments? Do, you know, what is the best?
Drama department.
Yeah, the drama department, which is the least intrusive way to become involved in that. Maybe you would join me in that. I'll let you know what it is.
Sure.
I did improv comedy in high school.
Yeah.
Bet
Well,
you did.
but then there are all these
Yeah.
extracurricular
History
networks.
department, yeah, I'm
Right.
sure there's like
A million ways in which they could be
If
involved.
you were interested.
So Diane,
Yes.
can I ask a question? What if we take 10 minutes and put down 10 bullets of the critical stories that we think, we just rattled them off when we were talking, but would it help you for the exec team and for us to actually have a piece of paper that says, this is what's most important to this committee? I feel like if we just talk and do it, you might be able to get something, because I think we all have the same kind of ideas. And that, then you could almost submit that as your report and say, these are the things that we're talking about as a committee. We feel really strongly that we need X, Y, Z. And then here's some of the things we started to think about to support those ideas. Would that be helpful since we can't meet outside of this?
I love that. With my like one slight amendment to that might be that we actually think about, we like outline what a workshop would look like for this committee that we then create a one-pager around for her to bring. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Tactics, but more like what we hope to accomplish from an exercise.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I like it.
Part there before we propose, because
Yeah, so we say like, this is what we hope, these are the questions we want to ask as a committee and we want to really flesh them out. You're welcome to join. I don't know.
I think that kickoff session would be really useful.
Because I think that exercise would inform this.
Right.
Everything.
So don't do, I had.
So
some cart
cart before the horse
I had
here.
two carts in
Yeah.
front of the horse.
I think
And
that's.
that horse is exhausted. All right.
We do need to know our message
Yeah,
before we can research.
Well,
it.
I mean, again,
And-
she has these, all that. She
Right,
has a list
right.
of that.
And I think
What we
we're-
need to do is to come up with a strategy to feed it.
Oh, she has part of that list. I mean,
Yes.
there are other parts of the list that some of us are gonna come up with, which
yeah,
it
that's
stands.
the starting point and then
But
all
as
of
a
us can
starting
add
point,
to
then we
it.
can add to it.
I
And
mean-
one small example is that our daughter-in-law is Chinese. And she has a whole network of Chinese communications that tell you where you should go, and when you can do it, and what options there are, and how to get involved, and blah, blah, blah,
Right.
blah, blah. I've
And the
never,
library does too. This is a huge, serves a huge Chinese community through this library.
through this library,
Yes, and have for years.
Okay.
well,
So
that's,
there's a lot.
that's information I didn't have, but I know Waylay has a whole, set of communications. And so there are gonna be lots of communities in which we need to plug to make
Also, there's a
certain.
very special.
You're saying within the
North Bridge, the
Not
Chinese
just,
nation.
not just within our community, but when that circle gets broader.
They worship that.
Yeah, this list is gonna get very large.
Yeah,
Well,
and it should.
It should.
Yeah.
And so, but I mean, that's the kind of thinking, that's the kind of expansive thinking I hope we will sometimes do. That is obviously two parts in
But
front of the horse, so let's go back.
to the resources question,
Okay,
because it does seem like there, at least what I'm reading here is that we want to lay this out so we can at least figure out some sense of what resources are needed.
Mhm.
There's probably some sense of what do we want to invest in owned media?
Yeah.
What do we want to invest in some kind of paid media? And what are we going to just rely on earned, right? And so we can at least make some budget projections.
And how do we find the right social media influencers?
Yeah, I think so much of this is gonna be social media.
Okay, I came up with 4 bullet points to
Okay.
start with. I'm trying to think about what we've all been
Mhm.
talking about so far.
Go.
So just what are the intriguing stories we haven't yet told about our history?
Right.
Again, is this
Yeah.
1764?
This is, I'm just, yeah. How do we best invite current voices into crafting and telling those stories?
Excellent.
Is there room to include stories from surrounding communities? And then this next one I think is really important. What are the academic or primary source resources and references we can access to ensure our public-facing messaging is accurate and credible?
Good afternoon. The library will close in 15 minutes.
Can you say that
If you
again?
have materials to check out,
Right now.
please bring them to the circulation desk in the next 10 minutes. The children's library is now closed. Thank you.
All right, type quickly.
Wait, wait,
I got
let me just repeat that. What are the academic or primary source references and resources that we can access to ensure our public-facing messaging is accurate and credible?
Or as accurate and credible as it's possible to be.
Yes, absolutely.
Because-
With the
As possible.
humility that lets us
Right.
know, yeah.
With Wikipedia and with the different indigenous sources
Yeah.
and different places would get stories conflict all over.
Well, that's
the
why I'm
place.
saying
Pick and choose.
primary source material rather than, and that's harder to get at, but
Right.
we do have an incredible array of really connected historians, et cetera. And I think it's important that we, at least that's something that I do with the magazine, is we are always very picky about, no, hang on a second.
Where's this
You
coming
know,
from?
this is
Sources,
not,
yeah.
actually, it came up recently in one of our articles. I don't know if you guys have seen the top 10 tales told on tours. We did that twice of like
I read that.
rumors that you hear on
Rumors that you
tours that
hear, that
actually
was good.
aren't
True.
true
Yeah.
when you dig in. And anyway, I just
That
think
was
it's
a great-
important that
Jethro's tree.
Yeah.
we take the high road in
Right.
anything.
Right. But if I were to point out that Jethro's tree is a myth that was done for a
Yeah.
particular reason in 1684, there's a lot of people in town who would be very upset about that.
Well,
But when we tell them the truth, well,
Right, because they've already been told the truth, that it's a completely different truth.
Yeah.
And as recently as 1967, when Ruth Wheeler had to figure out how to update the history. So a lot of the stuff in her and all the early ones, especially Shattuck, they're based on myths that
Yeah,
are-
yeah.
that-
Promulgated and
self-serving.
supported,
so.
oral histories that have then been cemented as if truth.
Right. But Bob,
But if
Bruce
we-
and I are dealing with this issue for the League of Women's Voters on September 29th. And we're doing a panel talking about what do we know about women and minorities when the white males suppress the stories. And the answer is, we can figure out some things, but a lot of it's speculation because the stories were suppressed. It's just- Right.
Right.
Is
Yeah.
this gonna be one of your first Fridays? Wait, no, it's not
Interesting.
your first Friday, it's September 20th, it's the evening of that, September 29th.
No.
Is this for the league?
No, this is for the league. We're having 3 seminars
Mhm.
that will be broadly advertised.
Hmm.
And they have been actually in the Monday Night News that you were looking at.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, but if you open it, look.
I
you
do
will see-
look.
Yeah. Or
I mean, if
read.
we do this process right, these untold stories will surface.
They will.
Well,
But
I'm
they-
gonna,
they-
I mean, I feel like NPR would be like.
Yeah.
But if you put the lens, which is a good lens on it, saying, do you have a second source? Do you have a
Yes.
primary source? Or is
Yes.
this hearsay? So much of it is hearsay.
Right.
and even if we have a bit of a vague primary source
Mhm.
that is, then reinforced with hearsay, as long as we are stating that.
yeah.
Right.
We can't say for
Mhm.
sure, but blah, blah. I think that's just really
Mhm.
important.
Also, I think your 4 questions, and I mean, these are excellent. The other thing is it helps. It would help, I hope, whoever the executive committee, whoever is gonna come up with what is the theme, these are the kinds of questions they need to be asking about the theme to me.
Yeah. I would add on a couple of others.
Mhm.
I think these are excellent. I would add on some like brand identity questions, like like, how do we want people to feel when they engage with Revolution 250? Like,
Mhm.
what do we want them to know about us? What are Concord's values and mission statement, and how does that fit into the overall Rev 250 mission? And then I think we also need to think about who our audience is, like, who are we trying to communicate with? Like, yes, it's everybody, but we need to think about who are we trying to talk to.
Maybe we, as part of the exercise, we want to create an audience matrix.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
I just
our
like the word
what we
matrix.
say on
That's
social
what I thought
media.
I'd say, it just, it doesn't work. No, we'll call you Jen Matrix.
Yeah, if we don't have that brief, it's really difficult to.
Well, there's also been
Progress.
mention, I think in the press release too, about looking forward.
Mhm.
And
Oh.
which we talked
Yeah,
about last
yeah.
time, and you and I have been thinking on the looking forward piece.
Um,
We've been
Where's
thinking in
Concord
terms,
going?
where is Concord and how do you
Okay.
engage Concord in that discussion
And what is like,
about what going forward looks like?
yeah,
think this is really
So
important.
there was an,
especially in this, like, obviously
Right.
this moment,
right,
our.
Stuart had, I know Stuart's not here, but he had one idea that he called Revolution Next.
Ah, yes.
Next 250, right?
It's
Is it-
250, yeah. So when he and I talked about a podcast idea that would go along with the printed, we thought that would be a great name for a podcast series. Is
Right.
Next 250.
well,
And-
here, can I just lay one idea on you
Yeah.
that we're thinking about before we leave? In terms of this vehicle for looking forward. We brought this up last week of what would it look like to engage citizens in a conversation about writing a declaration of interdependence? What do we, everything we've learned about our history, what is this history telling us? Our future is coming faster every day. And we're all pretty scared about it from many aspects of it. What do we want from one another as we look at this history and we look forward to where we want to go? How are we going to change the way we go forward?
That's so beautiful.
That's beautiful.
And I think there are a lot of opportunities to make media about that process
Absolutely.
in the community.
And
There's an NPR
Kids thinking
and
about that.
kids thinking about it, communities thinking about it.
Yeah.
There are cameras that would love to watch people discuss that and figure that out. Audio, podcasts, NPR, Instagram, storytelling. I think it would be a
Yeah.
great way to bring in the community to,
And one other bullet point that I think we should include in this sort of proposal, diversity also means including tradition. And I think we should ask the question, what from our tradition
Mhm.
is important to keep or maintain
Mhm.
as we move forward?
Right.
So,
And it's like, how have we grown?
yeah.
And
Well, I
how
was just
we
gonna
have
say,
not
like, the
grown.
negative, the
Like,
like
where-
the opposite flip side of that. as
Where
well.
have we
Yeah.
not lived up to
Yeah.
our dreams? Yeah.
But the forward-looking part here, which I think is
Yeah.
strong, is if we did independence,
Mhm,
living up to this interdependence,
mhm.
it's a whole nother level.
It's a whole other, and it's,
And we have to do that within the town,
Right.
Yeah.
between these committees, as much as
Mhm.
reflecting this.
Actually, that is the beauty of Concord. Most people who come to love Concord acknowledge that we are interdependent. It's the committee that meets at 7:30 in the morning, the committee that meets again at night.
yeah.
And I was talking with Anne, and she's coming from Cambridge and wherever else she's worked, or Concord discusses everything to
We're talking
death.
about Ann Clifford,
Okay.
who is the new, one of the new assistants, and she is actually a staff representative to Melissa's committee in the
Okay.
community preservation.
On HTC, but that's the beauty of Concord. It has always discussed everything and has fought over it, but then at the end of the day, we've come together. And
Yeah,
it really
and
has
people,
been.
and that's, every single moderator has said that over.
Mhm.
and
Where
over
did that tradition come from? They didn't bring food on the ship from England.
Arabella didn't bring it.
They picked it up here from the tribal councils. With no,
Oh, interesting.
when no decisions were made without having that same conversation.
No.
And the
Okay.
man who
Well,
met
that's
the
so
ships, the
interesting.
man
That's
who
such
met
great-
the people
yeah.
coming in off the ships was a man, well, you know this, because of Rick, but was a man who spoke English.
Right.
In
Because he'd been
He'd
enslaved.
been enslaved.
Right.
So
So
I
that's
mean,
a beautiful story.
yeah.
So if you guys would like, I'm happy to share my manuscript.
Oh, the
I
manuscript
think
is
it's so
gorgeous,
great.
would you?
I think we should make it part of the program. in the
Yeah.
right way.
Well, there's gotta be an inclusion in that. I mean, it's gorgeous. And it's also
So,
beautifully
okay,
written.
that
folks.
brings me to one of these committees, and I presume I have one,
And we
there
have,
is a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee.
We're about
Is
to be
that
locked
really
in the
about
library.
physical- I mean, you know.
I don't know, Rob Monroe just joined.
Yeah. okay.
And that was really a tour de force
Right.
by several of us, and now he's on the committee. You know, what he thinks, how he's gonna contribute and what he's gonna do, I
I
don't
don't know
know.
yet. Okay, I don't know.
And so that's not, that's not,
But one thing just to double down
believe
on
it or not,
Jen's,
it's all of this is very nascent.
Mhm.
Go
the
ahead, I'm
one
sorry.
thing to
Tony.
double down on Jen's point that I think links also is
Mhm.
if creating some kind of media collab
Mhm. Right.
and kicking that off with this first session, this workshop that we're talking about, this current research, could be a good way for us to also make our request for,
Mhm.
actually, here's the
Yeah.
media collab where we're gonna be creating media
Mhm.
projects, et cetera, et cetera. And we've got to start
Mhm.
creating this interdependence.
Right.
Um,
This interdependence needs money.
We're gonna have to create some kind of,
I don't
Yeah,
know what
it's
a
like
a-
collab, I don't know what a collab is.
good, because we're gonna define it. It's,
Kind of like a.
collaborative lab.
Collaborative laboratory.
It's a place of innovation. It's a place where people with different, with expertise in different fields come together and actually figure out solutions.
It's like a think tank.
That's
Like
such
a
a-
collab.
It's a modern think tank.
Right.
It's a
So
do
that's
tank. It's a
our
do tank.
Our workshop is a media collab.
Right, and when they did the addition for the library renovation, they added a collab space.
Oh,
Oh.
perfect. That's,
Oh, short for something.
Collaboration.
Collaboration, it's a laboratory,
So,
it's,
I
think
guess,
tank
but
is
actually,
thinking,
I
but a
see where we
laboratory.
break.
Yeah, okay, you and I need to meet,
Okay,
or you need to meet with somebody else on this committee and establish what we think the workshop should look like. Who's invited and how we do it.
okay.
So,
I'd love to come in.
okay,
Oh, and when are we meeting next?
well, I haven't done that yet.
yeah.
They're gonna kick us out.
I know that. in five
I'm
minutes, in 3
gone
minutes.
until the 27th.
You're gone until the 27th.
Or no.
The library will close in 5 minutes.
5
Please bring
minutes.
all remaining materials to the circulation desk.
Please
at
get
this
the
time.
beep
Yeah.
out.
All right, so it's closing in 5 minutes. So, you're gonna be gone till the 27th.
Yes, but I promise to bring back good wine.
Oh, boy.
Are we allowed to drink wine in committee meetings?
I
Well, I guess it's-
Done, but we have a good one.
Yeah, really.
I'm brainstorming sometimes.
Setting,
Katie.
yeah, yes.
How about that?
That's it.
We can adjourn afterwards and go drink.
There you go.
All right.
Except we cannot discuss anything.
Except the
right.
wine.
Wine.
Hey, that's
Just
great.
speak in metaphors.
Now, the 250 meets on the 15th, and then it meets again on the 22nd. And then it meets again on the 29th when
Are
Jim
we-
is presenting, and that's where I was gonna ask you to stand in for me.
How
On the
long
29th.
are we gonna be meeting weekly? Is that
Well,
like?
that's what I was just trying to work
Okay.
out, okay? I think 2 hours is what we always need. Does that make sense to everybody?
Mhm.
Yes.
All right, is Thursday or Friday afternoons best for people?
Works for me.
Friday is not great.
Not for you. Thursday afternoon was better for all of us
Yes.
last time. So we'll try to anchor ourselves on Thursday afternoons, if that's okay with everybody.
Mhm.
And the lovely thing is it precedes the evening meeting of the 250
Mhm.
executive committee. So ideas that come up there, I can just
Mhm.
bring, fold right in. Go ahead.
Thursdays are rough.
Mhm.
Well, it depends, how often are we meeting?
Well, I'd like us to meet initially, while we're working toward the workshop and getting that done every other week.
Every
Okay.
other week, okay.
So this was
I mean, I
starting
could do Friday. Is it possible to do earlier in the day, or is 3 to 5?
on the 23rd, you mean?
On Fridays.
Fridays late afternoon are just hard, 'cause-
Of course, you got kids.
yeah.
Right.
Would 1 to 3 work for people
1 to 3 would
1
work
to
for me
3
on Friday.
on Friday?
Yeah.
All right.
1:30 to 3? 1:30 to 3?
I'll tell you, yeah, the problem, you've got something.
Well, I always have something every Friday. I mean, I could change it. Maybe I could change it.
2 hours. This is a talkative group we're gonna need.
But more importantly, there's a lot happens, and I
Yeah,
just don't want us to, I don't want to
Shortchange.
truncate it, I don't want to
Right.
abbreviate our
Okay, I'll
brainstorming.
do 1 to 3 and I'll just figure it out.
Okay,
So we're saying 1 to 3 Fridays,
Fridays,
Every other Friday.
every other Friday,
starting on the 30th.
starting on the 23rd,
Friday,
So I will
okay.
miss that one, but I'll be back for the 7th.
and then the 7th, and then
I will miss the 7th.
okay.
23rd.
But
And then
just
the
so we're
21st.
clear, we can also virtually dial in?
Yes, we can. Oh, absolutely. Just as Beth has done. And Beth, you've done it so beautifully. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
thank you, Beth.
Thank you for accommodating.
Well,
both.
so grateful. All right, folks, we have to leave.
Okay.
So,
All right.
so you and Toby are gonna work on a workshop idea, and you are able to send that to me when it's on the, I want you to talk to me. about it once you're done.
Take it.
Because you're the chair.
Because I'm the chair.
Okay, great. Do you want to do
So,
that?
okay, great. Does that sound like a plan?
Yes.
Yay.
Toby Charter, me, Carrie Rankin.
I'm saying.
Okay.
And
All right.
I can bring for the meeting on October 7th, all of the deadlines that line up
Oh,
with
that would be
that.
really helpful. Can you also
Um,
send me this document? I'm just gonna attach it to the minutes.
Diane
Is that
has
something-
it.
Oh,
But yeah, oh yeah, to attach the minutes, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So the 23rd, the 7th, the 21st.
Do you have Sherry's email address?
No,
Yeah,
if
it's
I
on-
don't,
It's on our list of names on, you know, send out an email.
oh, okay, all right.
So, and I promise I will do minutes on the 23rd. I promise.
But you don't have to because Donna does wonderful minutes.
Oh.
And I
Can you
hope
send
she's
me an
gonna, I
email?
hope she's gonna
Carrie
be here on
Rankin.
Friday.
You might know.
Kate.
Oh, CARRIE,
Mm,
RANKIN.
At,
Oh, gmail.com. There's a J in between Carrie J. Rankin.
I'll have to brainstorm with you about different fund structures.
I will also miss the 23rd, but I will send notes.
So it might be-
Okay, when you're good.
okay. It's good to see you, Beth.
You too. Bye, everybody. I'm gonna get off. My human and dog children have arrived
Bye,
now.
Beth.
See you later, guys.